Okay, let's see. Hello.
Good.
All right, please let me know. And that's one. The other thing.
All right, let's go ahead and start. We've got the May the 12th County Commission meeting. We're going to open with a quick prayer and a pledge, and then we'll get into the body of the meeting. And since in an effort to cut down on the number of people in the room, I'll go ahead and open with the prayer. So if you'll pray with me. Father, we come today to you asking for your blessing and your hope as we gather to do the work of the county. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you clearly show us how to conduct our work in a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find the ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. Let us challenge each other to reach higher and farther and to be the best that we can. Lord, thank you for our first responders and our medical professionals. Please look after them in these difficult times. And finally, thank you for this beautiful spring weather. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, and I've got a flag, so I'm going to hold it up and ask you follow with me on the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We would never make it in the symphony, I'll just tell you right now. A little bit of a timing issue. Okay, Madam Attorney, we've got some language we read. If you'll bear with me here, we have the executive order issued by the Governor 2069, issued by Governor DeSantis on March the 20th, 2020, authorized local governing bodies, including counties, to conduct meetings without having a quorum physically present or at any specific location. The executive order also authorized the use of communications media technology for virtual meetings, such as audio and video conferencing. Executive order number 2069 was extended by executive order 2112, issued by Governor DeSantis on April the 29th, 2020. I'm now going to perform a roll call. So I would ask, for the record, all commissioners are attending the virtual meeting remotely using Zoom as the cloud platform for video and audio conferencing. If we experience interruptions due to disruptions or glitches in the technology being used, I will recess the meeting until the interruption is resolved. If the interruption cannot be resolved in a reasonable amount of time, I will adjourn the meeting. The temporary recess or termination of the meeting, if necessary, is to assure compliance with sunshine. So for now, I'm going to do a roll call by visual. Commissioner Lindley.
Here.
I see a hand and okay. Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Right, they're shifting the screen around on me here. Commissioner Proctor.
Here, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Jackson on the west side.
I'm here.
Commissioner Maddox, who's everywhere.
Here.
And Commissioner Dozier on the east side.
I am here.
All right, I think that's everybody. Madam County Attorney, I'll hand it off to you.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. The county issued amended proclamation 2020-7 on April 8, 2020 to modify board policy number 1-5 and temporarily establish procedures for the county to hold virtual meetings as authorized by Executive Order number 20-69 and extended by Executive Order number 20-112. These procedural changes were ratified by the board at its meeting on February 14, 2020. Continuing Proclamation 2020-10, issued on April 27, 2020, further temporarily modified Board Policy Number 1-5 to provide that virtual public hearings may be scheduled and heard at 3 p.m. or thereafter. At the April 28, 2020 meeting, the board also authorized public hearings subject to Section 125.66, subsection 4B1, Florida statutes, to be conducted in accordance with the county's temporary rules of procedure for virtual meetings as authorized by Section 5 of Amended Proclamation 2020-9. Section 5 of Amended Proclamation 2020-13, Temporary Rules of Procedure for Use of CMT to conduct virtual and formal quasi-judicial proceedings is currently in effect. This virtual meeting has been noticed with information for the public to view the meeting in real time on Comcast Channel 16, Prism Channel 16, and 1016 HD, the county's Facebook page and YouTube channel. The notice also invited members of the public to submit comment until 8 p.m. yesterday evening via the county's online comment form, and instructions were provided to explain how the public could submit comment. If anyone needed assistance submitting public comment, the notice provided a county phone number as a point of contact. I do not believe anyone contacted the county to request such assistance. The comments submitted through the comment form have been distributed to the commissioners for their consideration prior to any action being taken. These comments have also been posted on the county website so they can be viewed by members of the public. All comments received will be included in the public record of the meeting. Mr. Chairman, I have no further statements.
Thank you, Madam County Attorney. Just a couple comments and we'll get to the meeting. First of all, I appreciate everybody's patience and cooperation. These are certainly not normal times. We may never get back to what we used to remember we called normal. We've made what I would consider yeoman's efforts to try and make sure that the public has as much access as possible between streaming it live and taking written comments and phone calls, which we all get, and texts and whatever the form of communication is. So although this isn't perfect, and I know most of y'all have sat through a number of these meetings, I will give kudos to the IT staff here at the county who has done a great job at keeping this moving forward in a clean and concise way, and I'm thankful for that. So with that, we will go into the public hearings. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam County Attorney. Commissioners, you all will see here that we once again have our public hearing items up first, as the County Attorney noted, and as well, it has been publicly noticed. All of these have been publicly noticed to occur at this time in the meeting. We have 5 public hearings, Commissioners, and the first one, item number 1, Commissioners, is the second and final public hearing on recommended changes to the lake protection node to provide greater flexibility of development options within the nodes while still meeting the intent and goals of the LP future land use category. We have received 1 comment on this item, which has been distributed, posted, and will be made part of the record. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Commissioners. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everyone has read the comments from George Lewis and Alan Nita-Rota, speaking on behalf of Friends of Lake Jackson. I spoke with them a couple times, with Alan Nita-Rota a couple times about his comments, worked with the county administrator, and my understanding, I spoke with Alan about 30 minutes ago, and the response from both the county administrator and DESM have satisfied Alan and George Lewis. So I want to make a motion to approve this, and I want to thank the county administrator and DSEM for their response to Friends of Lake Jackson.
I have a motion. Did I hear a second? Yes. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Lindley, you were up next by my reckoning.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I also have been working with Dr. Nita-Rota about that, and was just really happy that the staff was able to get the language on making sure our stormwater facilities are in working order before development goes forward, and really appreciate that. I know there was some problem early on about that might be redundant to move it around, but I thought in a 307-page comp plan, we can afford a little more redundancy. So I appreciate that, and it's good. Commissioner Minor working on that too. Thank you. I'm in support of the motion. Staff recommendation.
All right, I've got Commissioner Proctor up now, if I understand it, and then are these in line, or are these?
Nobody has any hands.
Nobody. Okay. So is any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion is made by Commissioner Minor, seconded by Commissioner Lindley, I believe. Signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposition? Motion carries. Thanks. Who's Commissioner Jackson, the second? Okay. All right. Are we going to be able to do, I'm sorry, if people want to raise a hand, or how do you want to do that? So just so as a moment of clarity here, if you want to speak, it's helpful for me if you raise your hand so I get some sequencing just for this point forward. We can do it, and you can wave your hand if you feel like I'm ignoring you. I'll try not to. It's a little difficult from this end. Thank you. All right, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, just a quick note on the remaining public hearing items 2 through 5. Each of these are rezonings which follow your approval at the last meeting of the land use map amendment, and all are recommended by staff. Commissioners, item 2 is the first and only public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance to change the zoning classification from urban fringe to general commercial for approximately 3.34 acres of property located on Bluntstown Highway. We're recommending option 1, and we have no comments on this item.
Commissioner,
Move option 1.
we have a motion, and we have a second from Commissioner Dozier. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, Commissioner Lindley.
Yeah, I was earlier speaking with attorney at FAC about something I want to bring up later about maybe moving our commission times. And one of the things she brought up was that rezonings by statute have to be conducted after 5 p.m. Is that part of the exemption we got from the governor in his special order for these meetings, since we're now doing our public hearings at 3?
No, but one of the consent agenda items from the April 28th meeting was actually to obtain a majority consent +1 of the commission to conduct the public hearing starting at 3 p.m. or thereafter. So the commission actually took up the issue and unanimously agreed to hold the public hearings going forward at 3 p.m. or thereafter, which was the reason for the change today.
Thank you. I forgot that motion. Okay, good. I just wanted to be sure we were on the up and up. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is your first and only public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance to change the zoning classification from manufactured home and single-family detached to the light industrial zoning district for 4.1 acres located on the north side of Highway 20 west of Capitol Circle southwest. There were no comments submitted for this item, and we are recommending option 1.
Move option 1.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lindley, second by Commissioner Dozier. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Similarly, this is your first and only public hearing to consider the adoption of an ordinance to change the zoning classification from lake protection to commercial parkway for a 4.49 acre portion of a 18-plus acre parcel located at the Oak Valley Shopping Center on North Monroe and Capitol Circle Northwest. There were no comments submitted for this item, and we are recommending option 1.
Option 1?
Yes. Could we have a motion by Commissioner Minor?
Second the motion.
And a second by Commissioner Lindley. Any discussion? Commissioners, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up.
Thank you, Chairman. And finally, Commissioners, this is your first and only public hearing to consider the adoption of a proposed ordinance to change the zoning classification from residential preservation, RP, to general commercial for 2 parcels totaling 0.78 acres located at Capitol Circle Southwest and Tilly Lane. We have no comments on this item submitted, and we are recommending option 1.
So moved.
We have a motion. I'll second it. Okay, or Commissioner Maddox second it. Okay, any discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that's it for the public hearings.
Yes.
Okay. Awards and presentations, update.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, let me just say from I think we've got, yes, it is update time. I was just wanting to make sure we got our comment cards for citizens to be heard on non-agenda items, but we'll come to that in just a moment. Commissioners, in terms of the update that's listed before you on our COVID-19 response, I just wanted to share with you the latest in our response efforts. Like my update at your last meeting, Commissioners, I recognize that you're getting the daily updates that I send you each afternoon with the full scope of our effort, and I'm not going to get into that level of detail here, but I did want to provide you with just the latest relative to the public health status of our community and how that relates to our strategy of slowly and safely reopening businesses and other gathering places in our community. I'd also like to note that our Health Department Director, Claudia Blackburn, is on the call, and I've asked her to provide an update on testing in our community, which of course is a critical part of our reopening efforts, as well as contact tracing. So first, Commissioners, as you all know from the daily updates, we're still actively involved in the initial response efforts to COVID-19 at this time, which means that our immediate focus continues to be on life safety issues like mitigating the spread of the virus, coordinating the distribution of PPE materials, hospital surge planning, and the like. As of today, we have had a little over 250 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Leon County, and our cases continue trending downward. However, as we all know, that could change at any moment. At this time, our hospital capacity is adequate with enough space and enough ventilators to meet the anticipated need. As you know from previous updates, we have plans in place to address any potential healthcare need surge, as well as to safely house our homeless population. Leon County EMS continues to play a major role in transportation and infectious disease control, and our emergency management team remains activated for 63 days now and counting, and is coordinating daily with our partners in the region and throughout the state on our response. Commissioners, that brings us to just a quick status of our efforts to plan for a phased reopening in our community. And by reopening, of course, I mean the process of transitioning from strict physical distancing into a phased reopening of business and other gathering places in our community. As you know, Commissioners, shortly after our last meeting, the governor announced a plan outlining a phased approach to reopening the state. In alignment with the state's plan, starting on May 4th, we began the first phase of this plan for Leon County operations, including the reopening of several county services that were previously suspended. Our main library and all of the branches are providing curbside pickup and drop-off services, as you all know. We have reopened our Household Hazardous Waste Center. At DSEM, Development, Sport, and Environmental Management, continue to provide, or we're now providing in-person services on an appointment only basis. As always, our community and media relations team is communicating this through every channel available to be sure that our citizens know what services are reopening and where to find the latest information. Throughout this process, our most important responsibility, Commissioners, of course, will be protecting the health and safety of both citizens as well as our employees. And on that note, Commissioners, we will begin conducting health screenings and temperature checks for all employees reporting to work. That begins on Monday. With regard to commission meetings, Commissioners, there's a separate item, as you all know, on today's agenda, which provides options for the board's consideration relative to conducting meetings and providing for public participation during the pandemic. At this time, the executive order which allowed for local government meetings to be conducting meetings remotely is still in effect. However, based on the recommendations made by the state task force, it's very likely that the EO will expire in the next phase of the state reopening plans, which could occur as early as mid-May. In terms of our next steps, Commissioners, as I mentioned, our transition from One phase to the next will be based on public health and hospital capacity data. And a major component of that will be providing ample, accessible, community-wide testing to track and contain any future transmission of COVID-19. As part of the state's reopening plan, all county health departments working in partnership with our local healthcare providers have been directed to test 2% of their community's population every month. In Leon County, that means health experts must perform 200 tests per day. I'm proud to report to you that through the hard work and dedication of Claudia's team, emergency management, our area hospitals, Bond, Community Health, and others, we're now averaging more than twice that number with about 450 collections performed daily here in our community. And we continue working with our healthcare providers to further increase testing in our community. With that, Commissioners, as always, I will continue to keep you posted on all of the significant efforts that are happening here at the county. And at this time, I'd like to hand it off to Claudia to provide more details about testing. And Mr. Chairman, after Claudia goes, we are more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks. Claudia, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and that was a great overview, Vince. I'm not sure there's a lot left for me to say, but I can say that we have tested 7,286 people according to our official report. It's actually been more than that. So we hit our 2%, which was 5,804, and now we're trying to get 2% for the month of May, an additional 2%. So we're working on that, and of course the Bragg walk-up site, the FAMU Bond sort of health department collaborative with the Florida National Guard and some contract nurses has been just a huge success. And they are testing between 2 and now they can go up to 400. So between 2 and 350 a day is what they're seeing. And that has been a really smooth operation at the site. I think anybody that has been there knows that they can get through in about 15 minutes. And of course, Northwood continues on. They have changed their hours. They're now open from 1 to 5, Monday through Friday, and they are seeing quite a few people during that time. So I'm not sure it's really affected the volume. It's just more compressed and more efficient. And then Patients First has also opened up testing. They're open 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 on the weekends at 1705 East Mahon. They're doing the PCR test, so to diagnose people. And then they're also providing antibody testing at their other sites. So they have a flyer that I think you'll probably be getting soon that will give more detail. We are looking at doing some additional testing. We're evaluating kind of where we need to do that in the community. Going to look at our case data. We've got sort of a preliminary list that it's not public at this point because we need to have conversations with people before we move forward. But we have met initially with our community partners, including EMS and the federally qualified health centers, CarePoint, the Primary Health, FSU, to see who wants to be involved with doing some mobile testing, testing out to places where perhaps folks are not easily able to get to a testing site. So given that we're in the process of supporting Bragg and Northwood right now, resources are thin, but they're there, and we will be moving forward with this. So I'll keep you updated as that progresses. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. We are looking at our data. There's a lot of, go ahead, Commissioner Whitley.
Oh, yeah, it's just the Bragg program has been great. I went over there and it was really smooth. But in the last few days, I've been getting texts and emails from people who said they can't get their results, that the mailbox is full, and that's been going on for several days, even if you call after the 5 days have been up. So I wonder if there's another number for people to call, or if they're just overwhelmed with people not being able to respond on results of the test. So that, I mean, that's been, the mailbox is full, has been since I think Saturday. So that's a concern of mine. So I just wondered if they need some assistance in getting these results or at least answering the phone. Thanks.
I think the issue is with the lab at GenaWorks, and that it's taking a little bit longer for results to come back than originally was planned. I mean, the numbers are more than were originally planned. So there's a new message that I know Bond is working on, so that when there's a new message that people will get, there's a new number that they will call, and there'll be a process for them to get a call back. But it may be a week before the lab results come back.
So a new message would be very important, because right now it is sort of a slap when you just get instantly the mailbox is full with no explanation. So I appreciate that. If they could get that done ASAP, that would probably be helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, anybody else? Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Claudia, thank you for everything you're doing. A quick question about the antibody tests that will be coming available soon. I've heard various things in the national media about the accuracy of those tests. Can you comment on the antibody tests that will be offered here locally, and what's the sense of what the accuracy is for that?
So I can tell you that from the Department of Health at this time, we're not, the science is not there to support the use of antibody testing in any kind of diagnostic way. There's cross-reactivity with many of the tests with other coronaviruses. We don't know what it means if you do have the protective antibody. We don't know how long that protective antibody is good for, or if it actually protects. So there's more research that needs to be done. We're certainly optimistic that we will have that good science very soon. And they are using antibody testing, I believe, in different parts of the state, but I don't have details on it, for surveillance purposes. So I would imagine that we will pretty quickly have the science to support.
Would you recommend citizens in Leon County going and getting the test, if nothing other than just provide data points for the Department of Health?
That's not actually something we're recommending right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier.
Mr. Chair, actually, my questions can wait if Claudia was in the middle of her presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I didn't know if you paused Claudia on the testing or.
Yeah, I think she's done. I think she was taking questions at this point.
Okay.
Commissioner Dozier, do you have a question?
Yes, I really appreciate Commissioner Lindley, your question about the testing and your encouragement to everybody to get tests. So I'm glad I saw the report today about adding the antibody test to Patients First, and that's really good. You started to talk about looking for additional partners and other testing. It seems like, Claudia, that given the I guess increase in testing, but you've said the backlog at the labs, things like that, we're still going to have to do testing locations for the foreseeable future. I mean, versus getting a test at your doctor's office or something like that. This is what we should expect for the foreseeable future. Is that right?
I think so. It's worked out very well for this community. Has reduced transmission. It's been efficient. It has reduced the use of PPE, which is still an issue. So it's been a really good thing. So I don't see it going away, but it may be reduced. You know, eventually at Bragg, it may be maybe it will continue, but it will be a smaller effort. We're just really, we don't know. We're just kind of learning every week and making decisions based on how things are going.
Okay. As you have all along and keeping up fabulously. So everybody I'm hearing going to the testing sites, as Commissioner Lindley said, you know, it is very efficient. And I also had heard the comments about the voicemail and things like that. So I think that's the only concern right now. Beyond that, I think you were going to say something about contact tracing, or I could just ask you. I told the county administrator I wasn't going to put you on the spot and ask about contact tracing for the third time, but he said you might have an update for us. So Did you have anything, or I can ask my question?
You can ask your question.
Okay. I got an email from someone who, a professional person for other health reasons, has to stay home, but asked if she could volunteer as a contact tracer, helping to do the follow-up and things like that. And in briefing, County Administrator and I talked about this a little bit. He thought it would be good to bring it up today to see if that was an option. And I'd like to add to that, if Volunteer Leon could help vet if that was possible, could we help vet volunteers as you gear up to do more contact tracing as this continues?
So at this time, when I get the names of volunteers, I'm sending them up to the state health department. But my understanding is that contact tracing is not going to be something that we engage volunteers in.
Okay.
It is right now. We've got enough staff to do it. We're using staff that have training and experience in disease investigation. Contact tracing really is disease investigation. And it is, when you get a case, you find out, you help them try to remember all the different places they've been and the people they've exposed, and then we're contacting all of those folks. One of the things that's really near and dear to us is our reputation for protecting people's confidential information. We want them to trust us, and we want them to trust the information that we give them. And so there's a lot of training that goes into this kind of work. For a lot of folks, it's the first time they've heard from anybody about the possibility that they may have been exposed. And they have a lot of questions. There's a lot of education, and you have to know how to handle that and not reveal anything that's confidential. So at this time, we're okay. We're monitoring about 200 people right now, and we call them every day. And then the state is also, they've hired about 1,000 contact tracers to help those counties that have a very heavy load. And I know that they're planning on entering into third-party agreements with some other group, I don't know who it is, who will be. So if we get overwhelmed, we'll be able to ask for help. So it is being done, I think, by trained staff versus volunteers at this time. And not that the volunteers in this town are extremely well educated. It's just because of what it entails, the amount of training and the different systems that they have to work in, we're really sticking with the professional staff at this time.
Claudia, that makes a lot of sense. HIPAA, the confidentiality is critical, but you just kind of hit the nail on the head here. When I saw this email, and from someone who has worked in state government for a long time, we have professionals who probably understand those rules and could get trained very quickly. But I do understand the need to use staff versus volunteers. So if that ever shifts, there may be retired people or those who can't go out in public because of underlying health conditions, who may be willing to go through training and do something like that. So if we need more people in the future, that'd be a good option. But yeah, I just wanted to ask the question.
I will continue to send those names up so that if they are recruiting and there are, for employment, then that person might be interested.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Chair, the other questions that I had on the update list, I'm not sure if this is the whole update here, but I'm actually starting getting some emails about Little League and some other things like that. That's not directly for Claudia, but I wanted to toss it. I'll put a pause on right now if anyone else has questions for Claudia, but just wanted to talk generally about how we see reopening and how we address some of these questions that we're going to start getting after.
Why don't we finish up with Claudia, but that's a good point. I'm sure there's others that might. Commissioner Proctor, I thought you had a hand up earlier, unless I was mistaken. Commissioner Proctor, did you want to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Yeah.
Claudia, can you tell us what is the philosophy of governor's desire to have 2% of each county's population tested a month? And this whole notion of testing more is evolved. And also, can you tell us about what is the philosophical driver of testing by a governor who has been very reticent, from what I've been able to observe, and has been non-aggressive in this matter? Secondly, what are the tests showing about the number of black people who are infected? What are the rates? We're not getting that here locally. There seems to be a failure on y'all's part to tell the truth and be transparent. Everybody is getting thinking that it's a cover-up or something. Why can't we know the racial specific results? We're seeing patterns all across the nation that show distinctions with people who are gathering this thing. And third component of my question is, has anybody reached a clear understanding of when we should reopen up Leon County? Those are the three questions I have.
Okay, I really can't speak for the governor, and I'm not exactly sure where the 2% came from. I think, we're dealing with a lot of unknowns, and it's as much an art as it is a science. So I think that 2% seemed like a good, achievable number, and that's what we're aiming for. And I think part of it is just to get a picture of, will our positivity rate go up if we test a lot more people? Or will it stay about the same or go down? And that kind of gives us an idea of how much COVID-19 we have out there. It's not a perfect system. It's not a randomized surveillance study, which would be nice if we had, but this is what we have right now, so we're doing the very best with it that we can. As far as the racial breakdown, we do. I don't know if you've been to the flhealth.gov website lately. It is really phenomenal. If you go there and you click on COVID and then you scroll down, there's an interactive map. There's a dashboard. You can click on Leon County and it updates every day, and it shows you the number of cases. Like right now we have 266 cases, 250 of those are in residents. It has the number of deaths, and it has the demographic breakdown. And you can see we have more females than males that are infected here for some reason. That's different than the rest of the state. And then 47% of our cases are Black, 39% white, 3% other, and about 10% right now unknown. And that is a disproportionate share of Black people being affected with this disease. And, we know that the percent of the Leon County population that is Black is 32%, and yet 47% of the cases. Yes, there is a disparity there, just like we've seen disparities for just about every health condition there is. So that information is out there and it's updated every day. And I'd be happy to, and there's also zip code data. If you click on the zip code tab, you can see the cases for each zip code. So that's also very helpful. Understand, 32304 has the most cases, but we know that, we had an outbreak in that zip code, and that accounts for probably about 50% of those cases. So, there's all kinds of information there. The other thing that you want to click on now is the data and surveillance dashboard. That's what we're paying really close attention to. It's got our emergency department visits with influenza-like illness. We're watching that trend. We want that to trend down, and it is. We're also watching the emergency department visits with COVID-like illness. That has trended down. We're looking at new cases, and we're looking at, this is the big one, the percent positive of all of the cases of all of the people that we test. We want that to be under 10%, and ours is under 5%. So those are the indicators that we're really paying attention to as sort of those gateway indicators. And again, I mean, it's more like, what do you see face value? It looks like we're going down. And if all of a sudden we have a big spike, it might be because there's an outbreak somewhere. We need to be able to explain it. So this is what we have right now to make decisions, or we're not actually making the decisions, but to inform you all, policymakers, the governor, so that decisions can be made. And then you had one other question. Oh, I think I answered it in terms of the reopening. Yeah. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Proctor?
To ask, what is guiding, is science playing any sort of role in informing the reopening of these facilities to the public? Or is science merely being taken as placebo, a step to placate intelligent people who desire for it? Because whether there is science or not, the determination is that we're going to reopen, period, because there's been enough economic stagnation. In Prince George's County in Maryland, the county administrator has issued orders different from the governor of Maryland, who indicates that the state is to open. But the county administrator indicated that there are 9 black people who die in Prince George's County every day. And under those circumstances, science is suggesting, the death rate is suggesting that they cannot reopen in Prince George's County, even though that may be what the governor desires for the rest of Maryland. I'm trying to, I guess I'm committing an error of trying to follow this thing with intelligence. And that's a mistake, because I don't see how science, and is there some kind of methodology that you all are informing gubernatorial decision? And when we get to June and July with the experts, I mean, if they count it all, but if the experts matter, what do you all have in place that when the percentages go up and spike to a certain level, that we might close down again? The closing and the science that drives opening and closing. Can you tell us something about that?
I wish I had the answers. I can ask those questions. I don't know that there are, I'm not sure if there are real clear answers to those questions. I think part of it is going to be, let's look to see if we expand testing and the numbers keep going down. You know, how do people feel about that? And how does that look while we're in phase 1? If in phase 1 we see our numbers start to go up, I mean, that may tell you something. If they stay down and we go into phase 2, again, it's the same kind of thing. You monitor and see how things are going, and then make decisions with the data that you have.
So our chairman can make, Claudia, I want to understand from a legal point, and maybe our general counsel can help you. If we find in Leon County that our numbers are heading the wrong direction, like trending up, can our county administrator in this commission maintain a policy of closure, understanding whether or not beaches open in Naples and everybody wants to go to get together in Jacksonville? Do we have the independence and the legal authority to look at science that governs our community and make public policy decisions based upon that science? Or are we subsumed in the overall matrix of state lawmaker, governor, telling us that we have no authority to respect the science in our own independent community, which we are a charter government? Please help me.
So,
do you want to weigh in on that?
yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Proctor, the Leon County Commission has some authority locally to deviate from the executive order. It's really dependent on what the executive orders say. For example, with 20-120, which 20-112, which implemented phase one, it was very clear based on the language not only of this EO and the FAQs that the governor's office issued that local jurisdictions still have the authority to impose more strict requirements on businesses. So that was expressly understood under 20-112 and would also extend to the opening of the businesses subject to EO 20-120, which was issued over the weekend and became effective Monday, yesterday morning at 12:01 a.m. So there is some flexibility. It just depends on what the commission would want to do, whether or not that's preempted or not.
That answer your question, Commissioner
Mr.
Proctor?
Final comment, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say to the commissioners as I can that I believe that we should not be captured in the sway of the economic, the wealth side of things. I think that we should be in the health side of the evaluation. We should not abandon health evaluations. And if we're doing 2% of the population and the numbers, if we can find out, and I know that poor Claudia is working under the orders to restrict and to suppress the findings. I get that, I understand that. But if somehow these findings are unable to be contained and they are of a strong pandemic nature, I think that we have to act in accordance for our community. And Mr. Chairman, I think that your actions as your executive acts to a legislative act to enforce what is needed consistent with 20-112 or 120, I think we have to do that. And I also believe that we have to begin to think independently, because it appears to seem like every community has got to stand up and think for themselves. And I hope that the information that Ms. Blackburn is charting, we will pay attention and make our policy making consistent with what science is telling us. I appreciate you allowing me to talk, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Claudia, as always, thank you so much for your report and the information that you're obviously responsible for getting out to all of us, not just on the commission, but everyone here in Leon County, your staff, and the daily updates that we get are invaluable in our conversations. So during the governor's recent opening of phase one, he also talked extended amount about testing in assisted living and nursing home facilities of all residents. And I wasn't clear on the role that Leon County would play in that and what sort of enforcement we have, or how does that look in Leon County? And then I'll listen to your response. Thanks so much again.
You are very welcome. And thank you for your support. So we are in contact with all the long-term care facilities, the assisted living facilities that take care of people with developmental and physical disabilities. We call them every other day, and we have a series of questions that we ask them, and we are especially attuned to anybody, staff or resident that has symptoms of COVID. And if they have somebody, we are in there inspecting within about 4 hours usually. And when we go in, depending on what we find, we may make a recommendation to test everybody. We have not had that occasion here, other than one place that happened before the new rules came out from ACA. But there are resources available that we can request through the state if we decide that that needs to happen at a facility.
Okay, so then we are just in contact with them to see if there's anyone suffering from the symptoms that are in situations where they are somewhat compromised, either like you said, health-wise, mentally or physically, on a every other day basis.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we're also checking to make sure that they're screening there are no visitors, but they're screening everybody that comes into the building, that they have enough personal protective equipment, that everybody's following infection control practices. There's a whole list of questions that we ask.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that information. It's important to me.
All right. Anybody else for Claudia? And I think Commissioner Dozier had some questions that I might want to ask the administrator to weigh in on. Claudia, thank you for all you do. I'm glad you're there. Vince, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Well, commissioners, as you know, as far as our passive parks go, we are open and they're getting a lot of use. And but for our active recreational programs, also, as you all know, we don't conduct those in-house, but we work with our leagues. Some of the national leagues are suspending outright even signups. We've told them that we are not in any way prohibiting them from starting perhaps some season signups, but that we will have to keep them on notice relative to whether our fields will be open. So they can start signups. We're not preventing them from doing that. We just let them know right up front that our leagues may not, or our fields rather, may not be ready for when the seasons officially start. And again, that will coincide with the decision making relative to the openings of parks and larger gatherings.
Commissioner Dozier, does that address part of your question, or does that get you there?
Yeah, that was first part. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, just a couple other questions for the administrator. Is that all right? Okay, we're at that point. Unless you had anything else on the update, Mr. County Administrator, no? We're done?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah.
Okay. So the emails that we've gotten, just a couple from Little League, but I'm guessing the other districts are like mine. District 5, we got a lot of people who love Little League. So I know this might be hard, but my reaction to it was, if we can't do summer camps, Little League kind of falls into that category. And I did want to say I appreciate the update on the summer camps. I did pull that off consent, but I shared with County Administrator Heather, as always, did a great job, and any other staff who worked on that. Her name came to mind first. And I think it's a good baseline information of what child care centers are open and other things. And then we can use that as we go forward to kind of assess our options, or if there's challenges for different people. So I'm very glad that we're moving in that direction. I did get one question about churches, just affirming this. The governor never closed churches. Recommendation to follow CDC guidelines, 10 people or less. But the question was, when is Leon County going to reopen churches? And we had nothing to do with that. I see you nodding, Mr. County Administrator, so that's correct, yes?
That is correct. And of course, Chastity can add on to that very capably, but I believe that, but yes, that is the answer.
Okay. So the other question I had was kind of a two-part. I'm sure you're getting, the rest of the board members are getting a lot of emails like I am about masks. Should we mandate masks like some counties have? Looking at places like Publix or Home Depot and others where a few people wear a mask, but not everybody. Some businesses have employed it and others haven't. So I would be interested in a conversation about stronger encouragement for our businesses to require masks, appreciating those who are taking those steps. I think a mandate might be challenging to implement for sure. So it seems like encouraging people to do that would be better. But I do agree with these emails that we're getting that these businesses that don't employ that are putting their employees and residents at risk. So that's kind of the first part of my question about PPE on the job as we start to reopen. But Mr. County Administrator, I'd also like to know what we're doing in-house. If we are requiring masks, you mentioned testing for employees starting on Monday. And I think if we model that behavior and really show that we're doing it, that can go a long way. So can you speak to that for a second?
Sure. We are, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Following the CDC guidance on the wearing of masks, which is if you're in a place where you cannot adequately social distance, then wear masks. And so you may see some county employees wearing masks and others not. Those that are not are probably working where the spacing is appropriate, again, following the CDC guidance for them. But you'll see in many of our counter operations where we may be dealing with a customer across the counter from us in those limited circumstances, you will see employees, county employees wearing masks, again, consistent with that guidance. Other places where you could see that is in counties where multiple employees may be traveling in one vehicle and that sort of thing. But again, where you can distance physically, it's not necessary. But when you can't provide that physical distancing, our employees will be wearing masks in those scenarios.
So public works folks, when they're riding in the vehicle together, may be wearing masks. When they're working on the roadside, they may not. Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I hesitated to mention this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think modeling good behavior is something pretty critical. And I have gotten some notes about seeing county employees in grocery stores without masks on. That is an individual choice when they're off the job. I fully understand that, but people are taking note of this in the community. And any kind of encouragement for our folks to model that behavior when they're representing the county, I think would be very helpful in spreading the word, as our communications department is doing. And other than a great job on the SHIP funding to help with eviction or potential evictions, I told you I'd mentioned that, Mr. County Administrator. The last thing is I would really love a report, maybe a status update at the next meeting, if it's acceptable, Mr. Chair, and I can make a motion. Just give us an update on leave policies. We're 8 weeks or so into this. I know some of the CARES Act, other things may expire at some point. I'd like to know what the plan is going forward for vulnerable employees, how we might manage if someone at home has COVID in the near future, something like that. So if I can make a motion, I didn't want to put you on the spot, Mr. County Administrator, but if I can make a motion to get a status report updating that, that would be great.
You want to address that?
The only thing I was going to suggest, Commissioners, is I can easily accommodate that more quickly than waiting for our next meeting through our updates for you, and I could just make sure we give you a very comprehensive report on that.
Mr. County Administrator, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry about this, but I think that's great. I'm actually curious if there's any budget implications, if there's anything we need to do to protect employees going forward once the CARES Act and other things expire. So I thought that may be more appropriate for a commission meeting, but if you want to fold it into your COVID update at the next commission meeting, that's acceptable to me.
Sure, and I will. I'll look at it through that lens as well. And if there are, in that case, I probably will bring you back then if the board so deems, just to do an analysis to give you that comfort level. I think the case is going to be that there are probably not going to be situations where we need to do anything organizationally, but I'm more than happy to provide that report. So we'd be happy to provide a status report at the next commission meeting.
Okay. Do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
All right, we have a
I'll
motion.
move for the status report.
All right, is there a second?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I don't see a second. Sorry, my laptop started talking to me here. Is there a second?
I don't mind, I would second it, but it does sound like getting it in the reports is going to be adequate, but.
Yeah, I feel.
Honestly.
Yeah, if that doesn't work, we can circle back. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree. Yeah. Commissioner Dozier, I'd revisit it
I was open to just including the status report. I only made the motion again after county administrator said a status report would be appropriate. But I mean, if you all don't want a formal report, I just think it's something we need to keep an eye on because we need to protect our county employees and give them breathing room if needed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. I was Commissioner Proctor.
Is Claudia still on the line?
I believe she is. At least she's on my screen.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, along this line, I wanted to ask what is being done or can the county afford to put face masks across the community? I got a call last week with respect to people who were socializing pretty close down in the Frenchtown area, and they had no mask. And I got a call with respect to the city, and sometimes people are not aware of the distinction of a city and a county commissioner. But would the city please bring some masks down and distribute them? And I know that Claudia, ever since I remember my days in Atlanta, when AIDS first came out, they used to pass out condoms at the red light, people standing in the median, handing them out, and as a public safety measure. And I know that there are certain barbershops, doctor's offices, and places that you go to prevent the spread of STDs. Condoms are still given to the public, even though they can be purchased in different places. Is there a like movement, and how would we, I think I heard the word budget for masks to be made available, condoms available to protect the public? Has that consideration occurred? Is that a recommendation in the future, or how immediate and ought we to be doing that kind of thing to make masks as available as we make condoms?
I think that's a great idea. The condoms, making condoms available, especially where people can easily access them, is a structural intervention. And making masks available could be considered the same kind of intervention. At this point, we don't have budget for it. I think the issue too is availability of supply. But I certainly will take your recommendation under advisement, and we'll be talking about it to see what's possible. And it doesn't have to be restricted to the health department providing masks. As you said, the city has been distributing masks, and others, I think volunteers are also involved. So right now it would be great if there was an effort community-wide to do so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Lindley?
Let me get off mute. I'm sitting here and have been for several days actually thinking that we should be firmer in our own ordinance and require citizens to wear masks in public anytime where they can't do the proper social distancing. Because I think there's a great deal of just disregard for that now. To some extent, the numbers are looking better. And so people are just very, very lackadaisical about wearing masks indoors where maybe they couldn't, but maybe they don't keep their distance from other people. So I think that the emphasis, and I don't know how we would actually enforce requiring citizens of Leon County to wear masks, but I do think the idea of distributing masks and as much more emphasis as we can make, either by modeling or through our information systems. And I don't think requiring masks or stressing the urgency is really inconsistent with the reentry plan. In fact, I think it's essential to get to a reentry plan, which I know people are very eager to get to. I mean, I'm hearing about as much on email about when are we going to reopen? When can we go freely? Well, I want to say, well, not until you start wearing those darn masks. Get yourself together and do your part, which people aren't doing. I mean, otherwise, seemingly smart in our intelligent community, folks are not wearing them a lot of the time, and they should be. To that point, I mean, I've also been getting emails from people, at least particularly one strongly worded one about trying to get some sort of a community committee together to talk about reentry efforts. I think people do want clarity and they want reassurance. I don't know if we're there yet to the place where we sort of have a wide open community committee on reentry. I'm not even sure how we would do that. Right now, I'm kind of thinking our own emergency management team, working closely with all the professionals, the scientists, the business people who are really on the front lines, might be doing the job. Maybe we need to think about a community committee at some point, but it would be, to me, difficult to figure out who you appoint, or do we appoint, how much authority they would have. So I guess I just sort of like to respond to community citizens who have said, let's get a community group together to decide how to re-enter whatever normal is going to look like in the future. At this point, I'm not really in favor of that. I think we need to stick to a pretty cut and dried science and the medical numbers we have, the data that we have. So I just wanted to touch that. I don't know how other people feel about the community committee idea, but for me, I'm content with where we are right now at this point. And I hope we can emphasize more wearing those masks. They're really attractive and they cover up a lot of flaws too. So wear more masks.
You want to jump in, Mr. Administrator, or Commissioner Maddox?
Commissioner Lindley made me forget what I was going to say. No, I wanted to just, and especially relative to her, the latter part of the comment there, just to remind the commission that we do have through OEV, a group assembled with our staff representing all of the chambers of commerce, other business leaders and representatives in the community, so that, as well as health officials, to ensure that with respect to all of our reopening efforts, that we're consistent and coordinated in how we're doing that. And again, and of course, guided by, again, the health indicators as well. So I just wanted to mention that part. Just a reminder that that is occurring at OEV currently.
Okay. And it was mentioned earlier, talking about the masks. I think Commissioner Dozier, I think we lead by example, so certainly all of us. I know I'm guilty occasionally of stepping into a store and realizing I didn't wear a mask, but people see that. Commissioner Maddox, and then Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the bottom line is, after hearing everyone speak and hearing Claudia, the County Administrator, is that we have to be ready to discuss the new normal. I don't think we're going to get back to what we used to be until there's a vaccine out there that's been found to be effective. The group idea, I don't think it's a bad idea, but we are county commissioners voted on to make this decisions in the best interest of our constituents. I think we can take constituent input, but ultimately we have to make the decisions about how we want to move forward. So I think we got to get real serious. I think we should get real serious about what we're going to do. We're serious about the conversation we're going to have, and spend a lot of time talking about, what this new normal looks like for Leon County. I don't think we can piece it together. Us, hearing the information and just talking about it. I think we need to get staff to sit down along with Claudia and all the other stakeholders who are knowledgeable about this thing and map out what we look like for the next 6 to 9 months. And we make a decision on what that looks like for our county and hope that our constituents are respected. As far as the mask, mandating mask, I watched the Gaston County meetings a couple times while they've been going through this. They've been meeting pretty regularly. And they did go as far to mandate masks. And what you got a lot of pushback from the community, from people who said, well, if you can't mandate if you're not going to provide them. with the costs associated with masks and being able to access it and stuff like that. So I think the county might have bought some masks and gave each commissioner a certain amount to give out within their district, which I think if it's hard to mandate something that we're not going to provide. I think we can strongly suggest, and as you say, maybe in some cases, if we can lead by example, but to mandate, I think it's just going to be tough. But I wanted to get in the queue to say, all this is good conversation, but we hadn't had that one agenda item or workshop that talks about a 6 to 9 to even 1 year plan that says what are we going to do? What's it going to look like in Leon County while we're getting through this new normal that we have to deal with until we find a vaccine? Because nothing will be the same until we find a vaccine. Absolutely nothing. Everybody will be somewhat scared to sit in front of you close to 6 feet without something covering them over the next 6 months because they don't want to, catch COVID, bring it home to their families, or put others around them in danger. So, what I'm suggesting through saying all that is that we ask staff to come back along with Claudia with just I know the governor's got his plan, but just what projections we can expect, what options we have, what things we might want to do in Leon County that may be different than other counties to protect our constituents. What we project the numbers may look like, just things that we can sit down and not piece this thing together once they give us a report, but make some solid decisions about what we want to be, almost like a small strategic plan of what we're going to look like over the next year. So our constituents know, our citizens know, this is what the county commission plans to do to protect us from COVID while they're still looking for a vaccine. So I appreciate all the conversation, but I would really like for us to get to that place that we can have that deeper conversation, make some solid decisions about strategic planning over next year on how we're going to combat this thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I've got Commissioner Minor, followed by Jackson, followed by Dozier, followed by Proctor. Commissioner Minor, I believe, is that up? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was an op-ed in the Tallahassee Democrat, I think it was yesterday, that discussed a lot of this. I think Commissioner Lindley was referring to it, or Commissioner Dozier, I can't recall. But we discussed this about a month ago in April, I think it was April 14th, where we talked about a reopening task force for Leon County. And at that time, it was discussed that OEV was putting together a group of representatives to kind of have that discussion. They reached out to FAC, they reached out to the state level reopening task force, as well as the chambers here, I believe. So they've done a lot of that work. I'd like to get an update on what they've been able to find. When we talked about this last month, it was the idea of getting some community leaders here that could take a look at what other communities around the country are trying, given their health statistics, and figuring out what works and what doesn't. Trying to get ahead of these discussions so that we've got a good cross section of what other communities have tried, and put us in a good position to make those types of decisions. From what we discussed last, I think it was April 14th, OEV has been doing some work on that. I'd like to see what some of that work has produced so far. What has the chamber been able to find? What have we been able to learn from FAC and from the state level reopening task force? And how can we customize that to make it a local, to produce a local set of recommendations here? As Commissioner Maddox said, if we're looking at 6, 9 months, a year, this unfortunately could be the new normal for quite some time. We should be able to kind of lay the groundwork down on what we think we might need to do from policy angle, and working in parallel with what the budget workshops are going to have for our local county government. So I think the time is right for us to get an update from OEV on what they've been able to do to date, and then if we need to formalize that group where we appoint people as an ad hoc committee, I'm all for that. I think it. How we shape this community in the next 6, 9 months, a year, I think bears a lot of discussion and input from the public on how that takes shape. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner Minor. I've got Commissioner Jackson, followed by Dozier, followed by Proctor. Thanks. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner Maddox. For us to pretend like things are going to be a little bit better next month or next week or whatever, we look at the work in the state university and college system that's talking about returning in the fall online. We look at sporting events continuing to postpone and delay both at the professional, collegiate, and local levels. We look at our kind of the backbone of nearly every state budget, which is our public education systems, and how they're going to change nationally as well as internationally. And for us to wait or to have a group or focus group or even a work group, I think that a set of easy to understand strong recommendations at some point needs to be the work that we provide as county commissioners. Now, I am nowhere near the health expert that Claudia is, and would not profess to that, but we know that there are some practices that have been shared with us by the CDC that have guaranteed results as it relates to reducing the spread of this particular virus until a vaccine is discovered or until treatments improve. To pretend like this is something that is going to fix itself over the next subsequent meetings we have as a Board of Commissioners is probably hoping for the best and the glass half full, but at the same time, I think we need to have some strong recommendations. All of that to say that I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner Maddox, and I think those recommendations should come in the form of things that will help to preserve lives and help us to, in our local community, take initiative if we are absent any other guidance. So I couldn't applaud you more. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Administrator, you want to weigh in a little bit on this?
Just real quick, I mean, obviously, I hear the theme here. I just feel like we may be miscommunicating a few things, and I'm just going to take an opportunity to try to clarify a little bit. Certainly, OEV, as I mentioned, has this group together who represent, again, having the chamber representatives there, the idea being that we represent just about all the businesses in the community with all three chambers at the table. So for the purposes of having them help us communicate, we have been communicating, as you all know, through social media and all of our channels in a way that has been really prolific, in the millions of impressions now. So I don't want to leave anybody with the perception that there may be more communication that we could or should be doing. It is incredibly difficult to try to come out with what a projection would be. What we're doing right now is the recommended best practice, which is enter into a phase and stay put and analyze data before you slowly open things up. So to say that we could be able to project to the community what we're going to look like 6 or 9 months from now, we don't set the timetable for the virus. The virus, obviously, many of you have heard, sets the timetable. So again, I would just try to emphasize and underscore as much as I can. We're trying, in communicating with each of you daily, with absolutely inundating our community with the public health messaging and with tracking the data on a daily and multiple times daily basis to determine if you want to go from where we are now to just opening up a place that may be more of a gathering spot like a dog park. Again, we're taking that all very, very seriously and then making those recommendations to you all. If you look around, commissioners, there are not many more places for us to go. Much of what is happening, again, is happening in a very incremental basis. But I just wanted to underscore those things because I want to make it very clear, again, that much of what we're talking about is happening. So, again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to provide a little clarification.
All right, Commissioner Dozier, followed by Proctor, and then Maddox, I think, if I read these right. And Commissioner Proctor, you can press, you want to speak, and you'll get in the line. I knew you raised your hand a little while ago. So Commissioner Dozier first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You all have covered a lot of the territory. I think I chimed in when Commissioner Maddox was talking about the strategic plan kind of model going forward. I think we're going to have some tension between our desire to plan ahead and give some assurance, which I agree with those comments that you all made, and then also what we just heard from the county administrator. We've been hearing this from Dr. Fauci and everybody else. It's ingrained in us now. The virus sets the timetable. I think in the middle of that might be a way to elevate the CDC guidelines. And I think we're seeing this in some of the big box stores, some of the chains, first and foremost, of, putting the tape on the floor, things like that. But I just, heard something about a salon locally who was going above and beyond. It was on WFSU this morning. So maybe as we go through this and things change, again, Mr. County Administrator, you said you can't project. If we can lift up those businesses that are taking extra steps, everybody likes some free publicity and everything like that. We don't want to pick, one over a dozen who are doing a great job, but I'm really looking for some creative ideas to push these requirements so we don't see a second wave, we hope. I will say maybe we could start with what Commissioner Minor suggested and get a report back from that group. Any thoughts, comments, discussion that our chambers are talking about in that group. We're hearing your updates, but I think a report would be very helpful. And that may illuminate some other areas here. I do want to just, for those businesses that are not a member of all three or any of those chambers, just recognize that they represent a lot of our businesses, but not almost all businesses in our community. So, or sole proprietors or other people may be impacted. So just want to acknowledge that. The last thing, Mr. Chair, I wanted to mention this earlier, but OEV does have a great site or webpage on their site now listing where you can get masks locally. And they list the breweries that are doing hand sanitizer and things like that. I think those kind of local resources, so you're not hunting around the web for where you can buy masks, I think that is exceptionally helpful. So I don't know if we're honing it, if we need a motion or anything like that, but Ms. County Administrator, but I'd like to go back to Commissioner Minor's comment about getting a report, and we may be able to build on that for some of the other comments that have been made.
Absolutely, Commissioner and Chairman. That would be very easy for us to have a report back to you from OEV at your next meeting.
You need a motion? Ms. County Administrator, do you need a motion for that? We lost audio.
Yeah.
Rick, you'll second that motion made by
I will
Commissioner
second that motion. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything from the room there, but I was going to hand the motion over to Commissioner Minor for making it. But either way you want to go, thank you.
All right. Any discussion on that? Let's dispose of that while we're here. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. And I know Christina's on the line, probably, isn't she? But yeah, I don't want to put her on the spot. Okay. I got Commissioner Proctor up and then Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that Commissioner Maddox was on point, and I think that Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Dozier, and our colleague Commissioner Minor are saying similar things, and that is we do need something comprehensive going forward. And I think that Commissioner Maddox is saying that we're being too pity-patty with something that's a killer. And it's like we're around at the the Boy Scouts meeting. You go around and talk about what you did this weekend. We're dealing with a killer, here. And 47% of the people impacted are Black. So I do think that we're lax and laid back and too pity-patty with something that's disproportionately impacting African Americans in Leon County. We gave away $1 million to help out the businesses, and then we gave another $1 million away to help out nonprofits. And we have not put up any money for any mask. I think that Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox has gone door to door, the city. My understanding of giving out or purchase at least 25,000 masks for public consumption. But I think that Commissioner Lindley, before we make mandatory masks, I think that we have to make available masks. Everybody can't get them. Everybody can't get them. Everybody couldn't get tested until 3 weeks after the boutique testing center at Northwood is open, with a high standard of coming up in a car and having a doctor's sheet of paper. That's boutique testing. Now we got a test where lottie-dottie and anybody can come to, and they've exceeded expectations consistent with what this commissioner asked for early on, a walk-up test site. Our federal government then gave out $5 trillion. And not even the eminent Dr. Fauci has said that giving money away is going to get rid of COVID. If giving away money would get rid of it, then it already been got rid of here in Leon County, because us and the city voted $2 million, and America gave out $5 trillion, a lot of stimulus stuff. And the great irony is that America ain't bought one mask. Even the President of the United States don't seem to have a mask. Why don't we get the President of the United States a mask? So if we put money for public masks, as opposed to just putting money in people's pocket because we took an economic hit, we're talking about, what about the health side? So in this report, I don't understand why $5 trillion been gave out and not one mask. I don't know why we've spent $2 million and we ain't spent $2 for the public to get a mask. What is the angle on the health side of this, and not just the economy side? And I'm contending here from what I see is that science done got muzzled. Science ain't got no voice, and science is just has an ancillary status to money and the economy. Our science don't mean anything. Ms. Blackburn done told you. We don't know what it means. We don't know how many more folk got to die before we can shut things back down. We don't know. So science don't mean nothing, but Fauci and others have said social distancing, wash your hands, and I don't even know if we got a hand wash and sanitizer site. We still got motor scooters all over sidewalks, everywhere. But we ain't got a sanitizer site nowhere. When are we gonna get serious about this, y'all? We're too lax. People are really showing up graveyard dying. So I think that between Maddox, Minor, and Dozier, their comments as well as Lindley, we own to something. Vince, hear everything, play it back, what we're saying. We want something comprehensive, something strong enough to deal with something that's killing people and injuring people in our community. We want something progressive and set standard, and we can't count on Florida to do anything, because Florida will open beaches. I hope they don't open up Lake Ella and everybody go crowding around in bikini, because we'll open up beaches, everybody want to run out there to the water. That's what we're asking for, a comprehensive measure with some of this, that, all this stuff we're trying to say. That's what we want to see. And I support the motion and everything that you're saying, from stuff that we never know how to even articulate because we never dealt with it. But all of us are trying to say we want something concrete, positive, powerful, to fight something killing the children, the women, the boys and girls of our community. And when our children got to go around and hold up a sign of their face on a stick in their yard to get excited about a graduation because they didn't have one. And our little children come out of virtual prom and won't go out to one. This thing is taking an American way of life. This thing is robbing a generation of everybody come out in 2020. There's just stuff that is just going to be a big hole in their memories forever and ever. This is why we got to get serious and make Leon County a different space and place. I'm sorry for feeling emotional, but I am feeling 47% interest in this community. That's a lot of blood to give, disproportionate to my presence in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Next up, Commissioner Maddox. But before we go, let me weigh in here real quick because they're making, there was a comment earlier made about let's stand up another committee. We don't generally govern by committee. OEV, frankly, is kind of got a running start on that. So I'm a little hesitant to start opening the door and start, we've got a lot of what I would consider the leading minds in the community giving us advice. Until we get a vaccine, this is the new normal. So we're going to have to live with this, as been pointed out. And then lastly, I'll make a note. I've got a mayor chair meeting later in the week. And if we come out of this with some direction and ideas, I'd be happy to at least take their temperature on this as well for what it's worth. And with that, Commissioner Maddox, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Administrator, I heard what you said, and I agree, as we've all said, that you can't put a timeline on this pandemic, but I kind of disagree in the fact that I still believe that the things that we're doing now are somewhat of an unorganized, strategic way of dealing with it that we could put together in a more deliberate plan moving forward of how we're going to deal with it. And that, I think it would, just in my opinion, give our general public some kind of relief from knowing exactly where we are, what we plan to do, and how we plan to do it. Kind of almost of sorts like when I had the initial conversation with you about what the president had and the federal government had put together for the timeline on opening the piece where 14 days and all that good stuff. When you told me about it, it gave me some kind of relief. It gave me some kind of assurance that we're not just willy-nilly opening up. I just think we need to be very deliberate. I mean, I get the idea that, hey, we want committee here, committee there, but I mean, we have a professional in Claudia. We got a county administrator who's been running government for a while, and I think between all of the different stakeholders, and you want to bring in, hospitals and stuff like that to get information from them too. I think we could come up with something that, quite frankly, that this commission can be proud to put forward as a tentative plan as we wait out this pandemic on what we're going to do. I just don't like this idea of we're going to go day by day, watch what happens, or week by week and watch what happens and then respond accordingly. I just think we're playing from behind at that point. As far as the reports are concerned, reports are great. I mean, County Administrator, I think you've been giving some thorough reports every day to us about what's going on. But reports at some point have to lead to action. As Commissioner Proctor said, 47% of people who look just like me are being affected by this thing, and we got to do something about it. We absolutely have to do something about it. And I think we are doing something about it. But I just don't think it's as comprehensive as it can be. I applaud the efforts that we've taken on so far. I applaud what the county administrator and our chairman has put together in order to try to combat this thing so far. But I think it's time that we as a commission put our heads together and realize that, again, this is the new normal. We quite frankly may be sitting in this format of a meeting for the next year. I mean, think about that. I mean, we may be sitting on Zoom having county commission meetings for the next 6 months to a year. I mean, it could change, it could not. You just don't know. And seeing that as, again, the new normal, the new way we go about things, I just think we have to be very deliberate, very intentional about how we're going to move forward. I don't want to come back here next month and then or 2 weeks from now and we get another report and we have another 45 minutes of questions and then we have another 45 minutes of answers and then more questions, when we could have just had a very deliberate, comprehensive conversation about it, made some plans, and just getting updates on how well our plans are going. So I'm just ready. I'm ready for us to attack this thing. I really am. I'm ready for us to attack it and stop playing I mean, I guess you got to play defense, but play a little bit of offense. It's the way I feel about it. But I may be the only one in the one for the whole commission, but that's just where I sit right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. I think that's it as far as discussion. Good, healthy discussion. Well, I'm sure we'll have more. I think we're on consent, if I'm not mistaken. And you want, unless do we miss some things you want?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just add one thing. And I was taking all of that in, Commissioners. Let me assure Commissioners that, and I know you know this, but there are teams of people working around the clock every day here at the county. 63 days the EOC has been activated today, and the planning and coordination that's been taking place has been on a local, regional, and statewide basis. In terms of, and believe me, I appreciate and hear all of the comments that are coming down, and I had some thoughts I was writing. You all may recall that I sent you a Phase 1 Leon County reopening plan recently. And when Commissioner Maddox was referring to the federal government's plan, what they did was a Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. We recognized as things were unfolding so quickly that letting or developing Phase 2 and Phase 3, even though we know to a great extent what they are, we wanted to make sure that they were not inconsistent with the state of Florida. But I also have heard those comments there. So what I will do is reissue based on the comments that I've heard, at least for a starting point, and the board can obviously provide me more guidance on this, but I will provide to you a Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 report of what reopening, re-engagement looks like. And again, we'll be happy to receive any additional feedback. I mean, for example, when we just completed the Phase 1 and sent it to you, at that time there's been a lot of conversation about face masks today. At that point in time, and we're talking about days, I mean, this is how this happens. Just a few days ago, it was the recommendation from the CDC for the public, again, that all PPE supply chains relative to face masks should be directed toward our healthcare workers and not to the general public. And so that's what we've been doing in the community. You'll see that we have distributed over 500,000 units of PPE through the county to this point to all of our healthcare workers, because that's the guidance that we get. But we realize that things change and evolve, and so we can bring back that information as well. But that's just illustrative of sort of the guidance that we've been taking on a day by day basis. But one of the things that I'll do, again, based on this feedback, is to deliver Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the Leon County opening plan. In addition, we'll have the OEV plan coming back to you all. And again, as a starting place, we can see how that works and be happy to receive any additional guidance from the board.
Good discussion. Yeah, we've got Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Dozier?
Mr. Chair, I was going to save this till the end of the meeting, but because Vince just mentioned for the second time that our staff has been activated for 63 days continuously, I want to just acknowledge that in addition to the COVID response, you've dealt with at least 2 tornadoes, to my knowledge, wildfires, and we now see our first depression possibly developing off the east coast of Florida. So our team is exceptional. We all know this from emergency response, but it's only going to get more difficult. So again, Mr. Chair, I was going to save this for comment time, but just thought I'd take the opportunity to thank you all, and any additional guidance on, I know DEM Director Moskowitz is looking at sheltering and for hurricanes, other things like that, changes we may have to make in the future. If there was anything else we need to know about the fires, I'd love to talk about that in comment time, but I just wanted to say thank you. Have we lost audio from the main room?
Yeah, I think we lost audio from the chairman's room.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We got you.
Okay, so I think that's a discussion there. We have nothing pulled from consent. I would entertain a motion for consent.
So moved.
We have a motion. I'll second it. So we
Sorry, I
have
was
a motion.
muted.
Yeah, sorry. We have a motion and a second for consent. Nothing was pulled. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, that's consent. Clunky, but we got through it. Okay, next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, just wanted to note on this point on the agenda, for citizens to be heard on non-agended items, we received, distributed, posted, and will make part of the record 3 comments under citizens to be heard on non-agended items. And Mr. Chairman, that brings us to general business.
All right, general business. Okay, first up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. At your last meeting, the board requested an agenda item on options that exist to increase citizen participation in commission meetings during the current COVID-19 pandemic. As you're all aware, pursuant to the governor's order waiving the requirement of a fiscal quorum for commission meetings during this time, Leon County, like many other governments, has been holding remote meetings. These meetings are broadcast, they're streamed live, they're archived for the public. We also accommodate public comments on each agenda item by collecting, distributing, posting, and making those comments part of the public record. This item, Commissioner, presents, again at your request, additional opportunities available to the board for reinstituting in-person meetings and other technological opportunities which exist. And we included in this analysis to do so. Finally, as we say in this item, we do not believe that the governor's current exception to the in-person requirements for county commission meetings will remain in place much longer, consistent with future phases of the state's reopening plan. But of course, we will advise the board upon any such changes, which we anticipate will be forthcoming. With that, Commissioners, we're seeking direction, any direction that you might have on this item. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'd like to note that we received 7 comments, which have been distributed, posted, and will be made a part of the public record. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, I've got Commissioner Minor in the queue, and then followed by Commissioner Dozier. Or Commissioner Minor, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Lindley?
I've thought about this a lot, and the county administrator and I during our briefing discussed this at pretty good length too. Initially, I was thinking that we might want to try to explore having some semblance of an in-person county commission meeting compliant with the CDC guidelines starting May 26th. But I'm concerned about what type of example that might set. And so I kind of wanted to hear from the rest of you on what you thought. I do not want the county commission to be projecting an image of being lax when it comes to adhering to CDC guidelines or not wearing masks, etc. But I wanted to hear what you all thought. To echo Commissioner Dozier's comments, I also feel like we're not, as much as our IT department has done, and they've done an incredible job allowing us to even have this meeting here. But like Commissioner Dozier, I don't feel like we're quite really optimal in terms of allowing people to provide public input. Yes, they can email us, but it's not quite the same as having them in our meetings, hearing us directly and us hearing them. I want to try to find some type of solution that can address that comment. As you all have seen, we've gotten a lot of comments from people concerned about the lack of sufficient public comment from their side. And I think like everyone else here, I always want to err on the side of caution when it comes to collecting enough public input. And so I feel like I want to do something different than what we're doing now, as hard as our IT team has been working. But I want to hear from the rest of you on what you're thinking. I'd like to try to find some solution that gives people a greater opportunity to provide input. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Commissioner Lindley, then Commissioner Dozier. Let me weigh in real quick, though. In fairness, I think until the governor tells us that the ban or the exception where we don't have to meet, as was noted in the earlier conversation, you lead by example. And if we start coming together as a group, and frankly, the staff that's going to have to support us, I think that sets us up for really setting a bad example, in my opinion. So, based on what we're hearing, it doesn't sound like we're going to be in this position much longer as we slowly phase out of it. But I, like Commissioner Minor, would like to hear Commissioner Lindley, then Commissioner Dozier. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm eager to get back to a physical meeting, as I'm sure everybody is in some ways, and I appreciated all of the emphasis in the staff report on all the social distancing that we would do to accommodate that, keeping public members of the public separated before they would come into the chambers to speak and so forth. I think there was a lot of thought going into how to make it as careful as and safe as possible. But I think in the item it was noted that we might be able to start doing that May 26th. That's our next meeting. To me, that's way too soon. I'm interested in getting there, but I think at least the June 16 meeting, to me, that's even not that far away, but I would definitely not support trying to get there at our very next meeting. I know this ties in with Commissioner Dozier's interest, particularly in having some of those large-scale comp plan amendments in person. So we do have a bit of a struggle trying to get public comment, though personally, I have really enjoyed having the public comments written. I'm a person who learns more from reading than from listening to people at the mic. Often they squander a good 30 seconds, Mr. Chairman, just telling us that they're nervous and they don't usually do this and so forth. So for me, I think it's actually been very smooth getting the written comments. I appreciate having them all together, and so I'm comfortable with that. But I would just, if we get back to a physical meeting, I think all of those stipulations on how it would work, including staff not being in the room until and if they need to be there to answer specific questions or do a presentation. So I guess I'm kind of shooting for staff recommendation number 1, but just to put it off and at least another meeting before we try to get back into a physical arrangement, and possibly later than that. I'm happy with the Zoom meetings. I think they're working remarkably well.
Thanks. Yeah, good. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not surprised that Commissioner Lindley, you want the public comments in writing, and it does help. It helps get us more succinct for those of us who use lots and lots of words. On the other hand, reading those comments into the record, allowing the public to hear those comments and allowing us to dialogue about those comments, at the very least, seems important to me. We know not many people probably go to the website and pick up the agenda versus the number of people who may watch commission meetings, even if that's relatively low as well. We all know there are so many times where our discussion kind of bounces off of the public comments we hear. They may illuminate certain issues or draw out certain issues that we haven't dug into before, allow us to ask other questions. So as cumbersome as it might be, and if someone wanted to submit written and verbal comments or something like that, I'd be happy with some compromise. But as Commissioner Minor said, I think we've done a really good job, and I said this at our last meeting, up until this point. This has been very new, and for our new county attorney and our county administrator, you all have done a great job kind of unpacking what we can do and how to do it and to keep us, in the legal lane and all of that. But a few meetings into this, I'm hearing about it from a lot of folks. Heard about it this morning on a Suncoast Parkway task force meeting. That's happening by webinar. CRTPA, this was of discussion. And some of our neighboring counties, Wakulla is taking real-time public comment, and others are. So I do think, my feeling is we need to move in that direction. One thing I talked to the county administrator about, and you all may have seen this in different meetings you've attended, but for Suncoast, people registered before the meeting. There was a deadline like we have to submit public comment. Those people were given the password for the Zoom or something else like that. And I'm pretty sure we can do the same. And that may, one, track who's commenting, which we do anytime, anyhow, address and name and address always. But also it limits the number of people into the Zoom to those who have pre-registered. So I would like to look at an option like that for any future meetings that we hold virtually. But now I'm going to transition, and Commissioner Maddox, you said a little while ago, maybe we're going to be doing Zoom meetings forever. And then we see in the agenda, the governor may not extend the executive order just in the next week. We don't know what this is going to look like. As you said, Commissioner Lindley, I'm glad that we've got some initial thoughts about how to hold an in-person meeting. But my sense of this is whether the governor, if the governor rescinds that or doesn't extend the executive order, we have to meet in person. That's correct, Ms. County Administrator, Madam Attorney? Yes, okay. So we may not have a choice come May 26th or after. Either way, I would like to see a report come back on the 26th, fleshing out how we're going to do in-person meetings. And some of the public comment we got on this item, I think is really important. As we've all talked about, this is going to be the reality for the next year or so. What about those vulnerable people who can't come to the courthouse when we're holding in-person meetings? This same approach to public comment, whether it's record the video at home, you got 3 minutes and you send it to us by a deadline, or you get access in a real-time engagement through a Zoom function. I think we need to have that for virtual meetings and for in-person commission meetings. That is the only way to provide as much public access as possible during this time, whether we meet in person or not. So I guess I can pause there. Mr. County Administrator, in addition to what you have in the item, a few questions, and I just wouldn't mind giving you the opportunity to talk about what those in-person meetings look like. In addition to what you had there, I'm wondering if you've contemplated how we would do a joint meeting with the city, whether it's blueprints or comp plan or anything else. What your thoughts are about virtual comments or recorded comments when we do meet in person, and any other thoughts you all have had about how to structure those meetings.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, overall, as we point out in the analysis, based on the board's direction here, there's a lot that we can do, and you've articulated some of those, Commissioner, but incorporating video and voice only, as well as reading comments in a virtual commission meeting environment, all things that we can do. And again, based on the commission direction, very happy to implement those if that's the direction of the board. Relative to the in-person meetings, similarly, we lay out, generally speaking, how those would be done, but we believe that we can also, again, when the time is right and upon board direction, we can adequately space commissioners in those meetings, and we can facilitate the public as well, utilizing all of the public health guidance. And that's for city or rather county commission and city commission joint meetings as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment real quick on point to Commissioner Doak? Because I prefer reading the comments, I would like to see real-time participation also. I
Okay.
just wanted to say, I have not really hated this system. I really hated it. And but yeah, if we can figure out some ways to invite people in real time, that's a thing to do.
Good clarification. No one would ever fault you for liking to read things, our esteemed reporter, former reporter friend. I think this falls under option 3, but maybe option 3 and a little bit of 5. I'd like to make a motion to incorporate real-time public comment in virtual and in-person meetings. I should say virtual real-time public comment in both virtual and in-person county commission meetings, and have that implemented at the May 26th meeting, whether we have to meet at the courthouse or by Zoom. That would be my motion.
I thought item 3 was to have a separate forum for individual.
It's 4.
That would be 4.
You said
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Option 3 is modify
Oh,
current
yeah, yeah.
procedures to allow for direct citizen participation. Yeah.
Okay.
And I suppose, back to Commissioner Lindley's point, people could submit an email and then we read it into the record, but
Yeah.
So my motion again is to implement, is for option 3 to include in-person meetings as well, to provide a virtual option for in-person meetings, if I'm making sense there.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Minor.
Commissioner Dozier, would you accept a friendly amendment to, I think you all are part of Kill Me.
I think we got to get a second before I
Right.
can accept an amendment.
Why don't you make
Okay.
a different motion, because hers looks like it died for lack of a second.
No, Commissioner Minor just second.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Second it. Commissioner Dozier, would you accept a friendly amendment? I think you all are going to probably kill me for this, but I do think it's important. If someone does not submit, if someone does not submit a virtual public input, whether it's by recorded video or live, if they do it by email, I'd like to have the email read up to a limit of 3 minutes. I think that's important. I know you all, I don't want to kill your motion, Commissioner Dozier, but I do think that it's important for us to have something that is provided as public input read into the public record, even though it will be later put on the website. I think you might have mentioned it before. I think that's an important element of what we're trying to do here.
Commissioner Minor, I will accept it. I'd love to hear what the others think about it. Obviously, our meetings take a long time already, but if we were in person, we would hear every public comment.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think if we're letting others do real time, we should at least provide the option to read it into the record. Yes.
And sometimes we actually refer individually to emails we've gotten, and I think that works pretty well too, to discuss emails about dog parks or church or, maybe that would suffice even if we took it on ourselves to individually sort of summarize what we're hearing more formally.
Commissioner Jackson, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So you're asking for every email that is sent to commissioners to be read at the next subsequent board meeting?
No, Commissioner Jackson, what I took Commissioner Minor's amendment to be was if an email is submitted through the formal public comment system for a commission meeting, that document that we get emailed from Mary, that comes in after 8 o'clock last night, those emails would be counted as comments for the commission meeting, not every one of our individual emails. Is that right, Commissioner
But he
Minor?
mentioned, some of those are like chapter type emails.
Up to 3 minutes each. Up to
That's
3
a
minutes
long.
each.
3
So what
minutes
would be the
is long.
normal limitation? All right, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the motion.
I don't want to go with that.
Yeah.
What's that, Commissioner Lindley, did you have a comment?
I just am not into reading emails out loud in a meeting. I think we could make reference to them, or we might even say we've gotten a certain number of them, but I don't see, our meetings go on a long time. I think I'm not for reading emails. Who's going to read them? Do we have a dramatic? Yes, Commissioner Proctor, you could read them.
Mr. Chair, if I might, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's wind this down.
Yes, we can bring this in for a landing. I think my sense of this, and if I'm hearing Commissioner Minor correctly, we need to provide as close to public participation as we can get. And typically public comments are verbalized into the record because someone's there in person. So if we are only going to go with real-time video connectivity or audio connectivity, whatever that looks like, I think we don't accept emails. It has to be one or the other. If we're going to continue to accept emails in this formal process as public comment for a commission meeting, they've got to be read into the record. But we can just end that practice if people have access to real-time public comment during the meeting, and then they can email us individually. So we're not having staff read those emails in. I know this is getting complicated. I know it's wearing on you, Mr. Chair, because it's going on a long time. But this is the most basic, foundational principle of our, government system. This is critical. So I think getting this right where we're all comfortable is key. I am willing to go with just a video option, like a commission meeting, and if we do not accept emails for the public record, except on our own individual emails.
Commissioner Maddox, and then I'll weigh in after Commissioner Maddox. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm right there with Commissioner Lindley on the reading option. I'm not a big fan of that. If I want to do anything, I would be okay. Well, first of all, I think, it's not perfect, but the current system is probably as good as we can get. But if we want to try to do something different to see how it works out, I would be more in favor of the Zoom video call-in option, along with the video as well, limiting it to 3 minutes and having some kind of ability there to either mute or cut off that screen after the 3 minute period, and seeing how that works out for a couple meetings. That would be the only thing I could see myself moving towards. Like I said, reading emails, it gets a little long. Meetings are already kind of long. As far as when we're able to get back together, whenever that may be, having staff come back with some options there, maybe if we social distanced and kept people in waiting rooms and had them come in one by one to give their comment and then leave, could be an option for in person. But as far as the comments are concerned, I could go with the option to allow people to come in through video, and then being able to cut that video off or cut that sound feed off after those 3 minutes were up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let me weigh in real quick. I'm kind of where Commissioner Lindley is. We all get these emails. I like them because I know who I get them from. It's pretty clear. I can read them at my leisure. You take a lot of the emotion out of it sometimes, and oftentimes, as was pointed out, people spend an awful lot of time orating something that has very little content. So I like that. I think it's a little bit insulting to read them to everybody. Maybe that's not the right word. It's all public record. It becomes public record. And frankly, I like the idea that we have a chance to go back and forth. I'm a little nervous that we are kind of overcomplicating this as we go forward. By the next meeting, the governor could have lifted his ability for us to meet remotely, and it'd be kind of a moot point to a degree. I mean, we're going to have to slide into this or ease into this as time changes, because really we can't have, we're not going to have a town hall type physical meeting for a while. I think everybody would agree on that until we get a little further down the road. So I'm okay with status quo for right now. So I would say, because I don't have anybody else up there, let's go ahead and vote on this.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, would you like to speak, Commissioner Dozier? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I didn't know you were going to go straight to a vote. I was trying to listen to your comments there.
Okay.
So Commissioner Minor is the second to my motion right now. I am willing to remove forgive me, Commissioner Minor, but the provision to the amendment to read the emails into the record. and it may require a different second if you don't want to second that motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was next in line to speak. I don't want your motion to fail because of the friendly amendments. So
Okay.
I don't know how to do this procedurally. If we just want to, I can
We'll
withdraw my
drop the
friendly
amendment. We'll drop the amendment. Do you second my original motion?
I second your original motion.
Which
Not my
was,
first
can you,
preference, but I'll second the original
Yeah.
motion.
can you
So, Mr.
restate
Chair-
that, Commissioner
Yes.
Dozier? Yeah.
That's what I was going to come back to. So you just said you were comfortable with the status quo, and this may be a moot point when we get back into chambers. My motion contemplates recorded, real-time, remote public comment. So coming in through video or audio for our virtual meetings and our in-person meetings whenever we have to do that. Because we've got people in this community that are going to want to provide comment who cannot come to the courthouse. So I don't think this is a moot point at all when the executive order goes away and we have to meet in person. So the motion stands to provide real-time public comment by audio or video for both meeting, for any type of meeting we hold in the near future.
I like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. And it's, yeah, Commissioner Minor's the second, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion as Commissioner Dozier has outlined, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Is it, I'm lost in, Commissioner Proctor,
Yes, sir.
where are you on this motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm so sorry. I got a breakout and I didn't know, I couldn't hear it. I didn't want to interrupt because I couldn't hear it.
The
Can
motion
we
is-
restate the motion and we can take the vote again?
Yeah, why don't you restate the motion, Commissioner Dozier?
Okay. To provide access for public comment for everyone, whether we meet virtually or in person, the motion is to provide a audio or video option in real time at our next commission meeting and thereafter until the COVID crisis is finished.
Can I ask a question of the county attorney?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner Proctor.
Council, can you tell us with the governor's order 112 or 112, 120, does that not foresee that we may not be able to include the public in hold our meetings in the conventional sense of the public's being able to respond to every single item that we have, and that we're to give them the full access to our meetings as we have in real time, affording them to comment up to 8 p.m. the night before this in this emergent context. What is your thought?
So what the governor did through EO 20-69 was waive the physical quorum requirement and authorize governmental bodies to use communications media technology and hold virtual meetings. It didn't impact any other requirements imposed under the Sunshine Law. However, under the Sunshine Law in 286.0114, it provides that public comment, it's not required to have public comment at the meeting in which deliberations will and votes will occur. It just has to be fairly contemporaneous when those decisions will be made. So the public comment that we've been receiving in a written form in advance of the meetings is completely legally sufficient. So what 20-112 did was it extended 20-69, which allows us to continue to hold the virtual meetings and not have to have a quorum physically present. But in Section 6 of 20-112, when 20-69 was extended, stay with me, all it did was extend the 20-69 EO along with and through phase 1. So when 20-112 goes away, either the governor is going to have to actively re-up and extend 20-69 again, or it will go away. 20-112 does not have like an end date noted in it. The default deadline and end date for EOs in the absence of anything stated in the EO is 60 days. So if the outside date that we would be looking for an extension as we currently know it would be 60 days from the effective date of 20-112. Does that make sense?
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, does that make sense? I know I threw out a bunch of numbers. I should provide a flow chart.
No, you answered my question very early. You're very comprehensive, and I thank you. And I think that what I heard counsel say was that we were not required, and what we're doing is sufficient if people have the chance to write in. That's sufficient for public comment. And I really, Mr. Administrator, when we first took to this virtual context, we were told that it was all we could do to work out the master the technology of getting us involved, and that there was breakup of noise in our being able to channel the public into our open, so we were sort of in a closed circuit situation. That was initially what I understood, and that's why we were very limited, because technologically we had never done it before. And I'm wondering, have we moved beyond our initial baby steps of were and not in reason why we did not have the public engaged?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. Yeah, as we note in the item, Commissioner Proctor, we believe that, again, should the board wish to allow for the public participation either through audio or video, we could accommodate that. We point out the limitations and the potential technological issues there, but we would certainly, if it was the board's direction, endeavor to get that done as smoothly as possible.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner.
The reason that I'm hesitant and I'm okay with where we are is because of some things. When you get people and you can't see the whites of their eyes, you'd be surprised when you give people the real-time anonymity to call in saying, I'm John Doe, and it really might be Mike Doe. Profanity, obscenity, all kinds of things, disrespect, are occurring in these virtual meetings when people have anonymity. And I think that that our meetings might not tempt, and as I am aware of posts that were made on the Gaston County Board of County Commission page about masks, it's that kind of what people will do when you can't see them and they're hidden someplace. They'll put a white sheet on the head and clown on you. So I have a short temper, actually, and I wouldn't want to have to put up with a 3-minute cuss word talk to us, and I don't know who the real person is calling. So I think it protects us from a kind of COVID mentality person, and we've had some strong character people who said some things in our chamber to us before, but given the wall of complete anonymity, I don't want to hear that mess. So I would rather to not support this, and I am okay with the written documents as I have staff has provided us, which is a lot of work for staff to do. Now, this would actually, staff would love to stop having to write and translate and give us this thick package of comments that we have here before us. It would be much easier just to let people call in and, get it off of the chest, and staff wouldn't have to write it all down. But I think that given the possibility of our being disrespected with anonymous call-ins, I think we would be safer and we would maintain more class in conducting these hearings in sessions than if we allow the anonymity of people calling in without. So I will oppose this measure for those reasons.
I'm kind of where Commissioner Proctor is to some degree, but our offices are open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I take plenty of phone calls and emails and texts and people I run into in the grocery store, and I think the written communication, although not perfect, is pretty good. Commissioner Dozier, and then let's wind it down.
Mr. Chair, I have to say I'm really surprised, and I think I know which way this motion is going to go. But I do want to clarify, Madam County Attorney, you said, and I agree, that in the letter of the law, that the emails are in accordance with that. But we do see many local governments around the state include either recorded or virtual, real-time comments. So not everybody is conducting it simply through emails. Is that correct? You know that? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. To reiterate, yes, what we are currently doing complies with the law, specifically the requirements in Section 286.0114, but local governments all over the state are trying to figure out the best way to handle and conduct their business, and everyone's doing it a little bit differently.
And if we were going to go to a audio or video real-time public comment, it wouldn't be a free-for-all. It wouldn't be anonymous. People would have to record name and address. In my motion, it's a registration. So there is a way to control that aspect. And like we would have a bailiff in chambers to control an aggressive or someone who's a speaker or someone using profanity, our staff would be legally allowed to control that kind of action in a virtual environment. Do you think that's possible? I know you probably have to do more work looking into that, but do you think that's possible?
I think I would have deferred to administration on the operational and technical aspects of that.
County Administrator?
Sure. There has been, as you would imagine, very colorful experiences around the state. But as I think we've tried to point out here in the item, that I think we do have the technological ability to disconnect or mute lines and that sort of thing. So we would certainly be exploring that. Just like the county attorney was deferring to me, we've been discussing also, the free speech issues and that sort of thing, which obviously you get into as well, which is why we tried to say here in this item that we would just try as very best that we could to address all of these issues, understanding that the technological issues add a bit of a management challenge during a meeting, depending on how you do it. And we would be looking at, if that was the direction, all ways about going about doing that we could manage it the most effectively.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask those two questions because I wanted it in the record. It would not be like Commissioner Proctor describes in a free-for-all. But we all ran for office. We signed up for this. Whether we're stopped in the grocery store or we sit in a public hearing for 5 hours, we signed up, and this is our form of government to have public participation. And the email system we have right now is lacking for many, many people in our community. And if there's some bad apples, and we're going to deny so many others the right to speak in real time because there's a few bad apples, I think that's a really disappointing move. I just had to say that for the record because this one I would fall on the sword for this one. So
all right. Okay.
We take the vote.
Yeah, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor of Commissioner Dozier's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed to Commissioner Dozier's motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion fails. Good, but good discussion. Listen, I think that frankly the exercise to try and figure out how we do this better is a good one. So I don't think that that was, by any means, not good use of time. I would entertain a motion just for option one, which was to accept the report. I think so we can at least dispose of that. That was one of the few, yeah. Yeah,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Proctor?
I know that we don't go back on matters, but I need to just say to the commission that I'm so keenly sensitive, but as a matter of personal privilege, over the years, in terms of the anonymity of what people say to me on my phone and my messages that I hear, and over the letters that I receive, I possibly receive much meaner, much rougher kind of stuff writing me or leaving messages on my phone. I'm not a crybaby about it. It comes with the turf, and you're right. We're supposed to hear from the public. But when people get a chance to clown on me occasionally, it's really strong. I never tell y'all about things said to me that's not, well, Sunday school are very nice, but you wouldn't believe. So my experience in dealing with the public, or rather as the public responds to me, when they get a shot to talk to me through a letter or to leave a message on the phone and say bad things, I have had a different experience. So maybe my sensitivities with anonymity is different from the other commissioners. So I know that we're going to the next issue, but I just wanted to cite why and what makes me, in this instance, a little more, I like to see the whites of people's eyeball. I can defend and all like that. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying, Commissioner Dozier. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Dozier, you wanted to weigh in? Commissioner Dozier?
She muted.
Sorry.
Commissioner Dozier?
I got it. It was muted. I don't think we necessarily addressed how we would handle public comment once we're back in chambers. So when we are in chambers, are we going to require everybody who wants to provide a public comment to come to the courthouse and sit in the jury room and come upstairs? Or will we have a video option, even if they submit a 3-minute video in advance for those who, for health or age reasons, can't come to the courthouse? Mr. County Administrator, are you all considering that?
We, Commissioner Dozier, had considered in the public meetings that once we got back to the in-person meetings, we had contemplated anyway in our planning that we would facilitate the in-person testimonials by the public unless the board gave us direction to do something like along the lines you're talking about in addition to that.
I doubt this is going to fly, but I'm going to try again. I'd like to make a motion to at least get a report back, if not implement some type of alternative public comment for our in-person meetings for those who are compromised for health or for age reasons and cannot physically come to the courthouse.
Don't we already have a version of that? Didn't we offer?
No, we don't. What the county administrator just said is that people have to come to the courthouse to provide public comment. So when we have to meet in person, what are we going to do for those people who it is too risky for them to leave their house, but they still want to give us public comment?
Well, then that's what the emails, I mean, I'm
You're talking about back in in-person meetings.
right.
When we meet in
I
person.
understand that. But if they make a personal decision for health reasons that they can't come, you're
Mr. Chair,
asking
is there
now,
going to be a second motion?
how do we
Okay.
wire them in? Yeah, was there a second?
Mr.
I didn't hear a second.
A second, but
No.
we are disenfranchising a large group of our elderly and health compromised people if we say you have to come to the courthouse or you cannot provide real-time public comment for us. So I will leave it to someone else to make the motion, but that is really disheartening. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, make a motion for option number one.
We lost audio from the conference room.
Got a motion for option number one. Is there a second for option number one, which was
I second it.
Mary Ann, or Commissioner Lindley, I'm sorry, you seconded that?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Minor, you were in queue to speak. I apologize.
motion, but what I'll do is I'll see if I can hitch on to Commissioner Maddox's motion. Commissioner Maddox, would you accept a friendly amendment to accept option 1, to accept the report? But when we do go to in-person meetings, we provide what would, I think, satisfy Commissioner Dozier and myself. We have in-person meetings, people are free to come, and we have something that's, that works for people that are able, that are not compromised, but we still retain the email feature where people can email public input comments that are put into the public record. There are people that come to our county commission meetings. We had one just, you all know, you can think of one right now that is
Commissioner Meyer, what you're asking for is that we keep the electronic submission option that we have now. I'm
Yes.
okay with keeping the electronic submission option that we have now.
That's great. Because once we open up, not everyone's going to be healthy enough to.
I'm okay with that. I'll
Good
accept
point.
that. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
accept.
All right,
Thank you.
so I think that's fair. I agree. I tend to agree with that. All right, I've got a motion for option 1, which is to effectively keep the electronic submission, email submission in place as we meet physically, if I understand correctly. Is that the way it was proposed?
And option 1.
Yeah, in option 1, as part of it was option 1 with that added on, right? All in favor of that motion by Commissioner Maddox signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it looks 6-1 if I saw the way. Okay, thank you. Good discussion, thanks. Okay, next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 23, Commissioners, you will recall a request that came before the board to consider a controlled burn to manage the vegetative growth at the Lake Lafayette Lake Bottom owned by the county. Of course, as we note in the analysis, there's also a portion owned by the city. At that time, staff recommended that we first conduct a land management plan to determine the most advisable environmental management options before proceeding forward with the controlled burn. This item seeks your authorization of the development of a land management plan with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission or Conservation Commission conducting that at no cost to the county. With that, we're recommending options 1 and 2, and we have 3 comments that we received on this item, which have been distributed, posted, and will be entered into the record. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, commissioners. Commissioner Dozier.
Keep going to the wrong place, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I really appreciate this item. I am kind of excited that the conversation about the invasives and the burn at Lake Lafayette led us to this point. It's been a long time coming. Ms. County Administrator, I think you all were right to seize the opportunity and recommend this. So thank you for that. And thank you for your efforts. As we talked about in briefing, and you had Maggie chime in on this, a question I had last week, we've seen some public comment asking for additional review by other groups. And some have talked about a formal review process, and others have been very receptive to just having other groups review the plan after it comes from FWC, which I think, by the way, a free option for this plan is fantastic. They'll be great partners for us. So based on the comments I got back from Maggie through you, Ms. County Administrator, I'm satisfied with the coordination approach for the city. We may need to talk about that more once we see the plan come back, but I'm happy with that approach. And you also said that you would be vetting the plan through Tall Timbers, Blueprint, our Water Resource Committee, Audubon. That's what she had in her email. There's certainly some interest for, and water management, of course. Big Bend Sierra Club has been recommended several times, so I wanted to ask if they could be added to the mix. And also ask that any comments from that review process come back to us when we see the agenda item with the final plan. I'd like to see any comments from those various bodies. Would that be acceptable?
We'd be happy to do that.
Any problem adding Big Bend Sierra?
None at all from our perspective.
Okay. With that, I think this has been a good process. I appreciate the comments that came in, Ms. County Administrator, you referenced those, but there's been a lot of emails exchanged in recent days. So do you need any other direction based on what I just offered with Big Bend Sierra or a review in the agenda?
I don't believe so. I think options 1 and 2 cover it.
Good. Well then, Mr. Chair, I happily make a motion for options 1 and 2.
We have a motion. We have a second. Commissioner Proctor, is that you seconding it?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I want to comment on it.
Okay. And you seconded it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about it, the Weems Road closure and the bridge replacement project has really gotten to be very lengthy for such a small itty bitty bridge. Mr. Administrator, is there
different topic? Well, are we talking about the same subject here? I want to make sure we're not commingling here.
We're talking about the
Lake Lafayette, Upper
Right.
Lake Lafayette management plan.
Right.
But that's okay, and that's a city project.
Right. So a part of this plan, if I'm not, unless my memory is fading, the impetus comes from when we had a really restless and robust environmental community. When Paul's Chase was being settled, if I'm not mistaken, the commitment that the city would do a part to clean and make sure that the pollution was minimized in Lake Lafayette. If I'm not mistaken, that is the impetus for at least a part of this. Vince, have I missed something?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Commissioner, I think what you are referring to are, some of that which actually led to projects like the one that you see ongoing at Weems. But
Yes.
this item specifically is a newer, born out of a newer concern that you may recall. I believe Commissioner Dozier brought forward at least the idea of working with Tall Timbers to do a prescribed burn for the lake bottom. And that's what led to this item more directly.
And if the Weems Road bridge thingy ever gets straightened out, it's to facilitate a lower pollution standard with which Lake Lafayette was laden in heavy burden years ago. Is that accurate?
That was my understanding, yes.
Okay. And my point now is, what is the status of the bridge project, as I know that they're trying to improve, I imagine they're trying to improve the city's commitment to not polluting.
Yeah, go ahead. You want
No, I'd be happy to try to get an update to you, Commissioner. I just don't have that offhand.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Proctor, did you second Commissioner Dozier's motion, however?
I did.
Okay,
Yes,
good. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. I don't see anybody else in the queue to speak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Good motion. Okay, next up.
Next item, Commissioners, is an agenda item that seeks the board's consideration of an appointment of commissioners to the Value Adjustment Board. The current appointees are Commissioners Jackson and Commissioner Maddox, with Commissioner Maddox serving as the chair. All commissioners, including the current appointees, are eligible to serve. And with that, we will receive your direction, Commissioners.
All right, commissioners. Commissioner Jackson, is that a wave to speak?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Maddox to continue his service on the Value Adjustment Board. He does a fine job of leading us on there, so I would like to nominate him.
All right, are we doing this one at a time, or do we want to do two together?
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and amend Commissioner Jackson's motion to nominate Commissioner Jackson to be the other appointee on that board.
So wait, you want to second it and then amend it?
Of course, yes, sir, if I can, Mr. Chair.
So the motion that Commissioner Jackson made was for Commissioner Maddox. And Commissioner Maddox, while seconding that, asked for an amendment that Commissioner Jackson accepted to add Commissioner Jackson to that. So effectively, both the two of you guys roll through, as I understand it?
I would accept that amendment to said motion.
That hostile amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're
And just think, they can't even go to the prom this year, you know what I mean?
I'm not commenting on that on live TV. All in favor of Commissioner Maddox and Commissioner Jackson staying as the lovely couple in the Value Adjustment Board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, this agenda item seeks the board's full board's consideration of an appointment of citizens to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. All eligible candidates for the 3 categories of appointees are listed for your consideration in option 3.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
We can't hear you.
Audio's gone again.
We can't hear you. We
Commissioner
can't hear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I want to ask if we could, if you all would be willing to hold up on appointing anyone today on agenda item number 25. It's not that I am opposing any of the persons whose names are up. It's just that I am seeking and think that, and I'm unsure of the last time our board has met with the affordable housing community, this particular advisory board, or others. I think that we need, speaking of the word comprehensive, I think it's time for really, sincerely, a comprehensive update about affordable housing in our community. Every so often, we stiffen up and flex as if we're going somewhere in this department. And I just think that we've been cruising along, and I'm not against anyone whose name is on here, but I feel like our board deserves to review and at some point to staff this in the manner of a full court, workshop on this matter. And I just think that I like to hold in abeyance these names, and I like to see the board workshop some point in feasible future, for affordable housing. It's time for us to revisit that. And I do not believe that housing has become affordable. I do not believe that there are more people who qualify to access it. And I would love to see, with the new evolution of the project in South City, the whole meaning of affordable, I think, is at $202,000 or something, $205,000. And affordable has become a misnomer, if you will. And this category just needs to be reviewed by us. Now, if I'm asking, this board wants to nominate these people today, but I'm asking in exchange for this board to please share and let us share a common re-up on what affordable is. What are we going by to mark success in affordable? What are the goals in affordable? What are the new obstacles in affordable? And all of that stuff. And some of the elements from 32304 will likely spring forward in that type of discussion. But we owe citizens in this area, everybody should have to move over to Midway to walk color to attain affordable housing. And I just think that when we let our lights dim on this subject and fail to illumine our concern and commitment, market shifts, people don't get a signal that we care. And there is an evolution in this community, believe it or not, that affordable housing is becoming less and less attainable. So that said, Chairman, I motion that we schedule a workshop or something on affordable housing or with the city or all the right players on this. Try to.
Commissioner Proctor, let me ask you a quick question for clarification. Are you saying let's accept this slate of appointees and schedule a workshop, if I understood you correctly?
I think you heard me right. Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So that's a motion. Is there a second? I'm okay with that. I think that's not, I mean, we don't want to have a lapse here, but go ahead.
We can't appoint, I mean, the slate, there's quite a few appointees.
Okay.
And I have done some research on them and have some nominations.
Okay, why don't we do this, Commissioner Proctor? Why don't we separate the two motions, and we'll go to your workshop after we get the slate knocked out. How's that?
Very good.
Okay, Commissioner Dozier, you were up next, so I don't want to skip you here. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm glad you want to separate the motions. I would welcome a workshop digging into this. We've done a tremendous amount of work in recent years on the affordable housing. I'd argue under county's leadership, and we really pushed the workshop and a lot of different things in recent years. Workshops with the city in recent years. But I do agree we need to appoint people. I was going to make a motion for option 1 and then wait to hear from you all on 2 and 3. I didn't, and it sounds like Commissioner Lindley may have some recommendations there. So I'm just not going to make a motion right now, and I'll defer to Commissioner Lindley and others if they have want to join up options 1, 2, and 3.
All right, Commissioner Lindley, you want to take the lead on this?
Well, yeah. I was going to suggest in the first instance, nominating Kyle Frost and Madeline Horwich. In the second group, Deborah Lloyd, Trina Searcy, Kyle Frost, Sean Mention, and Martha Pitts.
All right, wait a minute. I'm confused because it's 3 in the first and 2 in the second.
In the first group, seeking one-term appointment, Kyle Frost and we have 2 of them in that one, and Madeline Horwich.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you want to weigh in because I'm...
Yes, I'm happy to walk you through this, Commissioners. In option 1, we're seeking the appointment of 3 citizens to serve out 3 terms, and A, B, and C are those 3 who are seeking appointment there. Deborah Lloyd, Trina Searcy, and Kyle Frost.
That was the motion I was going to make, yeah.
Okay, I was breaking it down too much, sorry.
So that's option 1, right?
Option 2 seeks your appointment of 2 citizens, and the eligible applicants are, and you'll see the 4 that are there before you. And again, and option 3 seeks 2 as well, with 3 eligible applicants as listed before you.
All right, let's knock off option 1 real quick and be done with that, and then we can go through this. How about that? Okay, so I have we have option 1 and a second. All in favor of option 1 as it's been presented, ABC, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, now we're at option 2, and Commissioner Lindley, I'll circle back to you since you seem to have a handle on this.
Well, I thought Sean Mention and Martha Pitts.
Okay, we have a motion for Sean Mention and Martha Pitts on option 2. I'm fine with that. I'll second that. Anybody else have discussion? Okay. All in favor of Sean Mention and Martha Pitts for option 2, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. Option 3, you get 2 of the 3 there. Commissioner Lindley, I'll circle back if you want. You're on a roll.
Yeah, Madeline Horwich and Lawrence Toby.
All right. So we have Madeline Horwich and Lawrence Toby. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Dozier, I think. All in favor of that as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Madeline Horwich and Lawrence Toby are option 3 on the Leon County. Okay, all right. Now, Commissioner Proctor, if you wanted to remake your motion from the earlier about a potential workshop in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a workshop on affordable housing at a time feasible. that we might gather our senses of mission, our sense of place, and some of the elements of which Commissioner said we've done so much research, that we might understand who and how many people are qualified for affordable housing and where are we going with affordable housing. I know that point, and I think, I'm not sure if it's a comp plan amendment, Mr. Chairman, but we had something to do with inclusionary housing. It was made an element of affordable housing. And I'm not certain where inclusionary housing stands as the alter ego of affordable housing. And these elements, it's needed for public policy makers lift up the idea of affordable housing in a great city like ours. The major cities of America are finding it more difficult, that affordable housing is becoming distant past. And so, commissioners, I offer that motion soliciting your interest and care that we find out where we are in Leon County, that we might strengthen our course and give our staff the direction of which, from time to time, they deserve and request of us.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second? I got a second from Commissioner Jackson.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Lindley, you wanted to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I just think over the years we talk about affordable housing, which I think is really a very technical term. It's not the same as low-income housing, and it's not the same as actually accessible to all income groups. So when we say affordable housing, I think technically we really are speaking to a kind of term of art that is used, and maybe we just should be discussing accessible housing or something a little more generic. I mean, I agree. I'm fine with the workshop to try to evaluate where we are. It's a kind of interesting time with the real estate market in sort of a strange position with sales not doing really well as far as from what I understand, but I'm happy with the workshop, but I just kind of quibble over the term affordable housing. I think it's, as you said, Commissioner Proctor, I think it's well over 200,000 is what considered a technical affordable housing price now, and that has to do with a median price, and it has to do with income levels within the community. So I just want to try to be clear that this is kind of a wide-ranging topic, and that we want to just get into how housing is accessible to all income groups, including the subsidized housing, where we are in that, I think, too.
Is that okay with an add-on as far as scope and stuff? Okay, all right.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second, and I think Commissioner Lindley kind of opened the door a little bit, just a little bit wider discussion. All in favor of the motion for the workshop signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. By my record, that's it. Am I right?
Correct.
All right. Commissioners, how about Commissioner Proctor?
We're in commission time, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you. I saw that, I believe, item 20 today, we had a piece that was given to us dealing with Washington Square. And I appreciate the county administrator giving us that memo. I need to say for the record that we had a light discussion that sometimes developers of some of the most optimistic creatures you ever meet. And even when the going gets tough, and who that man said that when the water got up, his boat was going down and the water came up to his lip. And he said, I have yet begun to fight. And sometimes developers, when the water's right up to their nose, they holler out, I just began to fight. I think we really need to keep our eye on Washington Square. its potential to be in the COVID-19 environment. One of the great things is that the interest is low. We don't know what affordable housing is right now. We don't even know what an affordable building, but I'm willing to say that because as the agenda item points out to us, Vince, and I appreciate it, that it's right in our back door, literally, that this may well be an opportunity when this developer recognizes that the water level is exceeding his chin, that he may want to be saved and would be prepared to think about throwing out the rope that can secure that piece of property in the interest of our county and its citizens. Maybe a good buy. I think we should keep our eye on that. Secondly, commissioners, it occurs to me that Liberty County has had a tremendous situation with their jail and COVID. They're positive, and I would like some kind of report from our sheriff indicating to us the health of the inmates who have been positive in Leon County's jail. I know that no two jails are run exactly alike, just as the county attorney said to us that public participation under 286 is not being conducted exactly alike by no two county commissions in the states. For whatever is occurring in the Leon County jail, I believe that as custodian and the funders of it, we ultimately have some responsibility to know what the protocols are, how the sheriff is protecting the inmates, and I would like to ask for our support for security from Sheriff McNeil, a report to us on how he is doing and continues to handle persons who are found to be positive, and most of all, the deputies that come and go, and how are they tested to protect the people who are locked up from catching this disease. I'm asking for a report coming back in interaction with the sheriff on this matter.
I think Commissioner Proctor, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to say, Commissioner Proctor, we'd be happy to distribute it again, but we just provided that to you probably within the last week or two from the sheriff. We asked the sheriff to provide a full report, which we submitted as an attachment along with one of our recent updates. However, if there was further direction that you wish to provide, we're happy to accept it.
Well, I know that this is an evolving situation, and one of the things under COVID is that the one thing that is constant is that there is no constant. And as Liberty County has jumped out like wildfire with 170 incidents, I realize that some of the reports the sheriff offered to us in the spirit of Commissioner Maddox's earlier comments, they appear to be somewhat speculative. But I think that even in the breakout of our reports, I like to see included, Vince, a report that has the category, because we break out the number of men, number of women, the number of juveniles. We break them out by race, by age. I think that we should also see a new category of illness. And I would like to see a report that breaks out, and I know HIPAA is a small role, but what are the number of mentally ill people there who've been, confirmed? What are the number of people who are there who are COVID there? And all of those distinctions give us greater detail there. And then finally, commissioners, I want to just give out a really good and big shout out for the work of read it in the paper the other day, a homeless shelter, the way they have handled moving persons who've been stricken or suspected to private situations to be housed. I think that deserves kudos. Vince, I know that you played a part, and I've had to call on the county administrator upon receiving requests for help late night, awkward time, and the county administrator has been actively engaged and on top of the game, in particular, to place people and give them help who are coming down with illness. I appreciate that, Vince, and I know you don't, seek to be lifted up, but you really deserve that. And secondly, for the guy, what's the name of the homeless shelter called?
Kearney Center, the Kearney Center.
Yeah, shouts out to Mr. Kearney for his heart of gold that's been exhibited. Just a rare guy, and I think that we're very, very, very fortunate to have Mr. Kearney as a member of our community. It makes sense for what he's doing, and God bless him. And then finally, Dr. Temple Robinson, Dr. Cynthia Harris, Claudia Blackburn, and other members of Lynn County's Health Department, Bond Health entity, and the FAMU have done an extraordinary rise from the ashes to public a testing center for which anyone without qualification can come to, and my respect for their efforts, and people are really frightened. And it's that fear that drives those numbers up as people are coming, they're coming out of fear, and they're coming and they're pleased to have a chance. And if you really get a detailed report, Ms. Blackburn will tell you, we're seeing people from Georgia, we're seeing people from West Florida, we're seeing people from all these counties who are curious, and all of those numbers are not our numbers, but we have people coming from all around. So shouts out to them for their efforts and all like that. And commissioners, to each of you, please be healthy. Commissioner Lindley gave us a little chewing out and told, about our mask. And Commissioner, I promised everyone that I was going to keep mine on until June 1, or unless it became 95 degrees. And when it becomes 95 degrees, I may give up my mask. I'm going to try to keep it on to 94, 93, 92, but when 95 hits, I'm taking it off. So thank you all, and look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just three things pretty quick. I want to thank Commissioner Lindley for being, I think, the first one of us to go to Bragg Stadium and getting the COVID test. Because of what I read in the paper about you, I took my whole family there last Friday, and we all got tested. So thank you. Want to encourage everybody else that's maybe listening that has not yet been tested, please go. No appointment is necessary. You don't need a doctor referral. You don't even need to suspect that you have been exposed or have any symptoms. Just walk up. It takes about 15 minutes, and they're open from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., doing about 400 tests a day, or until they run out of the 400. And they're going on until May 21st. So if you get a chance to go, it'd be good to go. We need more data points to bank off of. Number two, just want to remind everybody to go to leonvotes.org, and it takes 5 minutes to request a vote by mail ballot for the August and November elections. We don't know what's going to happen in August and November, but this gives you an insurance policy to make sure that, God forbid, we're in another lockdown, or you're uncomfortable going in the polling station, you will have a mailed ballot to you that you can use. If you decide to go vote at the polls later, you can take that mail-in ballot with you to the polls and you can still vote. So it's just an insurance policy. And then last thing, I know you all have seen some of the emails from nonprofits that were very happy with the nonprofit grant program that the Blueprint had established last month. There's nothing that we can do it as a body here, but I know at the next Blueprint meeting, we'll probably discuss whether to extend that program. I think there's some nonprofits that could still benefit by having that extended to June 1. So just some food for thought. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good comments about testing. Thank you, Commissioner Lindley, as I said before, and Minor. And also, thank you, Commissioner Minor, for continuing to press the vote by mail option. We got our mailing from Supervisor's office requesting our absentee ballot. So that is a critical thing for all of us to do. I just had one item, Mr. Chair. The comp plan issue, specifically related to the urban service area extension through Volani. There's a lot of questions. I'm getting a lot of emails. I'm sure you all are as well. And I've actually gone back and listened to the conversation from the city's April 8th meeting. And it strikes me that there was some new information added in to that meeting that I had never heard before about the impact on the Northeast, the cost for Blueprint of the Northeast Gateway project, things like that. So I'd like to make a motion for an agenda item to come back at our next meeting that we'll look at, and Mr. County Administrator, if you want to navigate me through this if I get it wrong, but there's really two things that I'm interested in here. One, if Blueprint and planning staff work together on the Northeast Gateway project or the comp plan amendment, these things were happening kind of concurrently. And so if that information that was brought out at the city commission meeting was kind of, was it contemplated in the past by Blueprint? And the second piece is if and how the amended development agreement, the action the city took on April 8th, affects the comp plan amendments that we're going to see eventually at a public hearing. So distilling this for the motion, what is that relationship between the comp plan amendments and the Northeast Gateway Blueprint project? Staff working together? And how does the development agreement amendment that the city approved on April 8th impact, if and how it impacts this proposal? Is that understandable?
That is. So we have a motion.
This is just for a status report or agenda item coming back so we can have the same information the city has. Okay, well, if that dies for a lack of second.
Yeah, I didn't hear a second. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to take an extra second here because I was really hoping that we would get a report to come back. If that's not going to happen, I want to share what I heard in that meeting. It was an exchange between Commissioner Matlow and Wayne Tedder. And basically what I heard Wayne say was, if we don't pass this comp plan amendment this year, the cost for the Northeast Gateway project for the Volani Boulevard extension, which we just approved in Blueprint in January, was going to go up. That the family might not donate the property if that comp plan amendment wasn't passed this year. I've looked at the January 30th information from our public hearing for Blueprint, and it says most of the right-of-way is expected to be donated. So the reason for my request here for an agenda item, at least some information, is that we were never told at Blueprints or at our workshop with the city on February 25th that the cost for this road may increase if we didn't pass this amendment. And I'm just very curious about that. So we're not party to that development agreement, and so we're not seeing those agenda items. But this could have an impact on our budget for Blueprints, and I think it's in our interest to understand that. Mr. County Administrator, I'm going to ask you a question now because I did bring this up in briefing. I have it in my notes that, to your knowledge, this issue about the family not donating the property, which has been contemplated in the agreement for a very long time, that to your knowledge, that had not come up during the Blueprint discussions about the Northeast Gateway. Is that right?
Well, I think it's fair, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, I think it's fair to assume that the city has had much more frequent conversations with the developer and the landowners related to their either donation or the purchase of their land than we have. Said differently, I think we have contemplated along the way that would be donated at a high level, but I think the details of that sort of thing would be closer to a development agreement negotiation between the city and the landowners.
That's perfectly understandable. What Blueprint staff included in the agenda was a majority of the property was expected to be donated. So that left that wiggle room to work out the details, right? But you did anticipate a majority of the property for the right-of-way being donated, and that's what the budget numbers were based on. Is that right? Okay.
That is correct, yes.
So, again, I'm just asking for a report to bring us up to speed with where the city is before we have to take up this item through the comp plan process. I think that's only fair for us to get the same information the city has. And I can try again to make that motion, but I'll wait to hear if I'd love to hear if anyone else is interested in hearing that information, because it's hard to kind of unpack it in bits and pieces, and it could have a really big impact on our budget at Blueprint.
All right, I said Commissioner Proctor.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Dozier is making sense right now, and I second the motion she's been offering, and I think she's absolutely right that we should not be disadvantaged when we can be advantaged with information. And when we're voting in the comp plan, it just ain't fair for them to have a long range view, and we got short bullets that don't go but so far, and they bullets go farther than ours in terms of information. So I like to have the same vantage point in visual as well as aerial view, and take to the altitude that we can look down on this at the same height with which they're looking at it. So she's not asking that we are impeding the process. You're asking that we get more information, in particular with respect to the cost and that dynamic for the quid pro quo in this, if in fact we are being in quid pro quo and told that we got to be adhering to this year, or else it's gonna cost us a bunch of money. Then let's just find out, how much money it's gonna cost. What are the dynamics? This makes sense. So commissioners, I make that second because Commissioner Dozier is leading and making sense and leading us directly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chair, was there another comment?
I can't hear you. Your sound is off again.
Let's assume he recognized you, Commissioner Lindley.
Commissioner Lindley, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. My only concern with this is it seems like it's something that we should have coming before the Blueprint Board, more pertinent in a way than for us on this board. I don't mind getting more information, but it seems like that's where we need to have the estimates on what the cost variations would be. So I was kind of lukewarm on another report to us, because it seems like that's a Blueprint issue more than ours.
Commissioner Lindley, Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually agree with you. That's why I looked back. I wondered if I missed something in the agenda item from January or in the workshop on the 25th of February. I didn't. So as we're all very familiar with in recent weeks, we can't take a vote to direct anything to come back on the Blueprint agenda. My only option right now is to ask for this information to come back for our meeting. Now, I acknowledge that that will be a few days after the next Blueprint meeting. However, there is a big distinction here. This relates to whether or not we approve the impact of approving that comp plan amendment. And so it actually is county and city commission business more than Blueprint. But Wayne Tedder and others are referencing the impact to a Blueprint project. So I think this has to come back to us because we're the ones being asked to look at the comp plan amendment initiated by the city.
Right. We will have a chance to discuss that at next week's Blueprint meeting as well, though.
Right.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to. I mean,
you can support the motion or not. When we ask questions generally at a meeting without a document in front of us, we have more or less detail. I'm basing this on what I've seen. I would like a staff report because this is very confusing to pull from different areas, this information. And I think we should be on the same page as our city colleagues when we look at this comp plan amendment.
but are you asking for a staff report for our next commission meeting, which is going to be, a ways off? I mean, and also, as I understand it, a time when we will be voting on the comp plan. So do you want a report ahead of that meeting, I would think.
Well,
I mean,
you
to be
anticipated
useful.
my next thought, which was, or the next issue at our meeting our last meeting, we decided to postpone large-scale amendments until we can meet in person.
Which may be the 26th or maybe not.
It could be the 26th, and this may be a delicate issue. I would like to hear from all of you on this. I think the notice for that public hearing is so short. If the governor doesn't extend the executive order at the beginning of next week, we have 1 week, and I think the hearing should still be moved beyond the 26th, even if it's one more meeting, because nobody knows right now if we can hold that public hearing or not. And proper public notice, I guess I don't want to beat up on my last failed motion, but is as important as public comment to me. So I understand your point. If we have a public hearing before general business, then this report would come later. But I don't have the ability to ask for this information to come to Blueprint right now, period, full stop. That's not something I'm allowed to do. So my only option is to say, pretty please, can we have the same information that the city has? That's all I got.
All right, Commissioner, so let me go ahead. So you got a motion that you want to get some kind of report back relative to some of the
relationship between the Northeast Gateway project and the comp plan amendment, both of which were being worked on in the last year, and an update on the action taken by the City Commission on April 8th, because that is new information that's come after our last workshop on the comp plan. So it's not all Blueprint related. We should be brought up to speed on the development agreement and how that ties into the comp plan.
Okay.
It's just information.
Yeah, no, that's all right. But it's a Blueprint issue, and we'll have a Blueprint meeting in prior to this.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair, it is a comp plan issue.
Well, I mean, okay.
And I can't ask for an agenda item at Blueprint. You can direct that. As chair of Blueprint, actually, if you would like to do that, that would be fabulous.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yeah, Commissioner Maddox.
Look, I understand what Commissioner Dozier is trying to do, but if we're getting information after the agenda item, I don't really understand the purpose of getting information.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of way that the county administrator could provide us by email the information prior to the meeting rather than it being given to us at our next meeting, prior to the blueprint meeting? I don't see why he can't just get that information to us for us to have an understanding of what was going on with the relationships and things like that, for us to be able to review and have going into this, the next meeting that we have concerning this issue. So I understand what she's trying to do. I just don't see the purpose in getting it afterwards. So if my preference would be to get the information prior to versus getting it at the meeting.
Okay, so yes, I think this information should come to us before the comp plan meeting. And I understand that by some readings of our motion that may happen on the 26th, I disagree with the speed of that because we're limiting public access. However, this is a comp plan issue, and Commissioner Maddox, getting an email doesn't allow us to discuss those issues or ask questions. So now we're going to limit our discussion time?
On point. We can actually have a discussion anytime we want to in a public meeting. Getting the information is getting the information. If we have the discussion at the comp plan meeting or if we have it at our commission meeting, the point here is to get the information in order to have the discussion. So it doesn't matter when you get the information. If you have it, you can read it, and then if you read it, you can discuss it in the public forum whenever we have our next public forum. He can give us the information tomorrow,
which is next Thursday.
Yeah, let's keep going. Commissioner Minor, you want to weigh in on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I see it, we can do one of two things. I like the idea of having an email sent to us in time for us to be able to make a decision. It's just simply more information. It's clarification on what happened on April 8th and how that changes things. I support that. Another option is to give Wayne Tedder the heads up, give the other folks at Blueprint the heads up that we're going to be asking this question and want some clarification there at the next Blueprint meeting. I can see either one of those options working. I'll support both, either. Is it possible for the county administrator to provide an email to us in time for us to take a look at it and make a decision? I mean, to use it as input in making a decision.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can send you an email tomorrow if you'd like.
Yeah.
And could the chairman of Blueprint ask for this item as a discussion item at our Blueprint meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you could add that to the agenda. You're the chair, Commissioner.
Will the chair ask for an item to be presented at Blueprint?
I'd be happy to get some kind of report, sure. Yeah.
I think that's the proper venue.
Then that was the solution on the table the whole time, Mr. Chair. I don't mind not getting a report back so long as we get some information. The email, Mr. County Administrator, would be acceptable. The bottom line here, from my perspective, is that if I'm reading this right, and this is why I want a staff report, because I want to make sure I'm reading this right. But if I'm seeing it right, the city's action on April 8th put the county commission in the position where we have to vote to approve a comp plan amendment or spend $2 or $3 million on right of way that we expected to be donated. So before we get to a single public comment on this comp plan amendment, which is huge, I mean, this is a legacy issue, 2,800 acres. Before we ask any question about that amendment, we are in the position where we have to make a choice, spend taxpayer money or approve a land use issue. I'm really uncomfortable by this. So I look forward to that discussion of Blueprint. I'm happy that it's going to come on the 21st. That's great. Commissioner Lindley, to your point, I just simply couldn't request that myself. So thank you.
So that gets your motion, that effectively takes your motion off the table then, right, Commissioner?
So long as the county administrator doesn't need a motion to get an email and you don't need anything. Yeah.
Right. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Anything else, Commissioner Dozier?
I think that's it. Happy Mother's Day belated to all of those who are.
Mr. Chairman, on point,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Proctor.
Materially speaking, will Blueprint actually reflect the April 8th information? Vince, is that actually going
That's what we've asked for.
I mean,
That's what we asked for.
Vince, can you speak? Well, can you speak for yourself?
Sure, I'm happy to. I wasn't sure if that was a question for me, but yes, absolutely. We can, the blueprint item will reflect what happened on April 8th at the city, but I will also provide you an email to that effect as well.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to state, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, Commissioner Dozier, but the value of this particular comp plan, it has a direct value in proportion to the right-of-way. And whether or not we pass this comp plan, and I know the county attorney would not let us have to act in, under duress. And I know that our county attorney would not, would step in and she would not let us get our arms twisted. But this comp plan, it seems to have a value on whether or not we're going to get this right away for free or not. And this might well be, Commissioner Dozier, a $2.8 million vote. So I'd like to understand the market dynamic in this vote in terms of what it might cost taxpayers if at some point in the future, something tied to the gateway and all like that. And I mean, truthfully, it's hard to distinguish our blueprint hat. Sometimes I put on the wrong hat and I'm supposed to be at a comprehensive plan hat. Then my other hat might be county commission. I mean, CRPTS, we wear a different little hat. And the truth of the matter is that when it comes to this money, it's about 2.5 people that decide for all of us anyway. So if Wayne Taylor has spoken by God, who else is there to say anything more? His multiple roles in all of these different arenas in which we're putting on different jerseys, it's the same people who make the decision for us and over us. So I like to know, Mr. Administrator, those dynamics, and don't be shy about them, exposing that for us. And I'm appreciative for Commissioner Dozier sort of bulldogging through this point. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, because Commissioner Proctor raised this just now, thank you. There are a lot of moving pieces. Everything we do is interdependent. I mean, there is a relationship between comp plan and blueprint here. And Mr. County Administrator, if you would please in your letter, there's one piece of this that another piece that I'm a little confused about. The proposed alignment for Wolani Boulevard from I-10 north is already inside the urban service area, to my understanding. So what's the relationship between the right-of-way for the interchange and the road that is inside the USA and a comp plan amendment that is going to expand the USA in a different area of Wolani? I'd just like to know what that relationship is. I think it comes back to that development agreement. Again, that's something the city has seen and we haven't. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might say that, that she brings up a wonderful point, that my whole concern is, I don't know why the USA can go way up there and I'm on bended knee, crying out loud, shameless before children and all, to say that I want the USA to come down to the airport, to the street that the airport is on. How come the urban service area don't even go to the street that the airport is on? I don't get that. And the city is withholding the urban service area, gerrymandering these people down on the south side that we cannot vote in city elections. And I think that this political, we can go all the way up north and this, but we can't even bring urban services down there where there's thousands of people living inside a capital circle. I'm coming to the meeting. I ain't coming to an in-person meeting, Mr. Chairman. I won't be meeting with you all before June. I don't care what the governor say, I won't be there physically. If y'all allow me to meet with you on the phone, I will. But I'm not coming to meet with nobody before June, okay? But I am saying that I have problems. I'm walking in there staggering, almost angry about where the city is and how they're mistreating the South Side with urban services and withholding our capacity and ability. We're talking about disenfranchisement. People are disenfranchised by the city of Tallahassee so that people can't vote in the city election on the South Side. Thank you, sir.
All right, Commissioner Maddox.
Mr. Chair, good job running a virtual meeting. I just want to take the opportunity to say Happy Mother's Day to those mothers across Leon County and those across the nation that may be watching us. Also want to appreciate or send out appreciation and love to Vaughn Wilson and O'Neill Brown for their 45-mile challenge that has gotten a lot of people in Leon County moving. You can't imagine the kind of numbers that folks are putting up every day. It's 45-mile walk or run challenge that they're doing in the month of, what month is this? It's been that kind of day, y'all. It's May, the month of May. So 15 miles, 1 mile a day for 15 days, 2 miles a day for the last 15 days, which will get you to 45 for the month. There was one gentleman who got it done in actually, I think about 4 or 5 days. I thought I was gonna be able to compete, but I didn't get it done. I got it done in 6 days. So I'm so proud of the numbers that folks are putting up. I look forward to seeing everybody keep moving with the challenge that they put forward. It's pretty exciting to be a part of it. So I wanted to send out my love and appreciation for what they did and the fact that we're getting people out there moving, inspiring them to stay in shape while we're getting through this pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Lindley.
Let me get my mute off so you won't hear my doggy in the background. A couple of things. I particularly appreciate Commissioner Minor's comments on following up on getting the testing down at Bragg. It really has been well done, but I do hope they'll get a new message out to people. And the mail-in ballots, I'm on the substitute on the canvassing board, and our local election supervisor's office is doing an amazing job trying to catch up and get the mail-in ballots, make everyone know that that's available and important this year. Also, I want to congratulate Mary Barley, who runs the Leon County wellness programs. I've been participating in Zoom yoga and through this at noon, and it's been great and keeps me sane when sometimes you guys stress that part of my mental health. So just kidding. Finally, the third thing I'd like to bring up is I've been really enjoying this slightly different schedule that we've had on Zoom with our meetings, and particularly having the public hearings at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sort of dispensing with some of those big issues. And so it comes to mind that after all of these years of my being on the county commission, I would like to see an agenda item that would explore the idea of moving our meetings, our regular business meetings, to 9 o'clock in the morning, and then having public hearings, perhaps once a month or every 4 or 5 or 6 weeks or whatever's appropriate, purely as an evening meeting, starting at 6 o'clock, which would allow more citizen participation. I spoke with Laura Yeomans at FAC, who's the attorney at FAC right now, about the great number of commissions that do have their regular business meetings during business hours. And I know we've been doing the 3 o'clock in the afternoon since I think at least 2005, maybe before that. But this would have several advantages, particularly in terms of a wide county staff participation. They start out all day and then they come to our meetings and sometimes stay up until 7, 8, 9 o'clock. Could reduce some needs for security. And I think we could really accommodate public participation on the public hearings and even on occasional big issues that we know we're getting a lot of pushback on, like Children's Services Council or gun legislation or various issues like that. it seems to me to be more business-like way to do things. People now are not always working 9 to 5. That hasn't been going on for a long time. And I just think the flexibility for the citizens to participate would be equally good at having daytime meetings, as well as starting late in the day and then wandering on until the night. So I would like to make a motion for an agenda item to explore moving our commission meeting times. And, you know, maybe 9 o'clock another time.
I would second that, Commissioner Lindley, for discussion with the idea that rather than discussing it tonight and solving it, if the staff came back and said, here's what's being done, here are the pros and cons, and because I've heard different versions of different times around the country, and there are pros and cons. And, you know, I'm not in a place right now where I want to sit here and get down into it and say I'm all on board, but I'm okay with staff at least running the traps. Yeah, and bring an agenda item back. I think that's certainly fair. Yeah. But I might say at the end, I might say I like where we are. So, but for a discussion, absolutely, and have an agenda item, I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Understood. And I mean, I think when I was talking to Ms. Yeoman, she said there's just a variety of ways it's being done around the state, and effectively and legally, and with, you know, so yeah, I would like to know the pros and cons. But I think it's a good time. We're changing the way we do business in a lot of ways, and it seems an appropriate time to consider this.
Commissioner Lindley, you want to weigh in on this? I mean, Dozier, I'm sorry, pardon me. Yeah, Dozier, I'm getting slow.
Oh, yeah, I'm off mute. Well, I'm just curious, Commissioner Lindley, I mean, at this point, I don't think I can support the motion. Did you talk with Laura about any issues related to access for those meetings? I mean, there's a lot of general business items that do draw a crowd, and frankly, the 7 of us may not know that one of those issues is coming up until we see the agenda. And it seems like it's easier for people to leave work towards the end of the day, even though we hear that's a hardship for people, instead of the morning, and not really know when they've got an end time. The other thing that comes to mind is, I mean, the young people who come and join us, or the PAGE program, things like that, that would all be off the table if we didn't hold a meeting after school. So did you get into either of those issues with her about access?
We did discuss it briefly, and a lot of counties do successfully, you know, have good public involvement. So, you know, I think it's, as the chairman said, I mean, I think it's worth thinking about and discussing and seeing what the pros and cons are. And, you know, those might be worries.
Commissioner Minor, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I can't get there. I think leaving work at the end of, if we have to do it during normal working hours, we know people work at all hours of the day. It seems like the end of the day after school, kids are out of school, is probably easier. If the motion passes and there's a report, I'm going to be interested to read it, but I can't support it. Thanks.
All right, Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Dozier and I are very much in sync during this meeting today. I also can't support the motion, Commissioner Lindley. I understand what you're trying to go for. I've got to look at it in terms of what I think is best for citizens' access. And even 3 p.m. is not perfect. As Commissioner Dozier said, we get a lot of emails about people wanting to have us schedule it later, starting at 5 or 6 p.m. I do think that 3 p.m. is a happy medium. I think it's a good compromise. I think it probably gets us the most citizens access that we probably can. I don't think 9 a.m. would be able to do that. Yeah, I want to make it easier for us and for the staff of the county, but I've got to put citizens first. I know you are too, but this is how I look at it, and I think citizens will want us, all other things being equal, keeping it at 3 p.m. So if we do get a report, if the motion passes and we get a report, I'll read it. I want to have that discussion, but I can't get there right now. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is for an agenda item, if I understood correctly, and the agenda item was to bring back a discussion about the pros and cons of when we might have the meeting. One suggestion was in the morning. I don't think we were definitively saying, if I understood Commissioner Lindley's motion, I want to move it. I think she said, I'd like to discuss the pros and cons, but so that's the way
I... It hasn't been discussed in 20 years, so...
Right, and I'm okay with that. So that's the motion and I'm not putting words in your mouth, Commissioner Lindley. I just want to make sure I understood the intent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion as provided by Commissioner Lindley, I seconded, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I got 5, all opposed, Commissioner Dozier and Minor. Okay, 5-2. Okay, well, good. I look forward to that. Okay. Floor is still yours, Commissioner Lindley.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Sorry, not last but not least.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. What time's that yoga scheduled for again, Commissioner
Noon.
Lindley? Why are y'all laughing? I'm
Noon on
writing
Friday.
that down right now.
Hey,
Noon on Friday, okay.
I just threw up.
Congratulations went out to many folks. I wanted to take this commissioner's time to congratulate all our graduates, not only the universities and colleges here locally and recently, but more importantly, with my principal's hat on for just a minute, all of our graduates of the public school and private school system here in Leon County. An admirable effort by our school board superintendent and Leon County school staff to have some sort of recognition of 13 years, some 14, some 15 years worth of hard work. And this is for some, this will be their educational highlight. And kudos to staff over at Leon County Schools for trying to put something together that safely and in a responsible way, I think recognizes our graduates of the school system, as well as many of the private schools are holding their graduations in a way that recognizes them, or some sort of ceremony. I think it's important to these young people that, like Commissioner Proctor mentioned earlier, missed out on so much for this final semester of their senior year. We had a gigantic jump in unemployment in Leon County. We know that number is probably 2 times what the actual report was. There are leaner days ahead. I think I read somewhere where there was a 4,000% increase in the number of anticipated claims for unemployment in the state of Florida. And we know that there has been some reliability issues with the software related to that. It has gotten better, but there are people that are struggling. People in District 2 and in any district and all over Leon County, Tallahassee, Florida, nationally and internationally, that are struggling. And I would ask us to be very frugal and very fiscally good managers at this time. And I think our staff has already gone out in front of that by we put the brakes on some things at the last meeting, and a lot of our conversations tonight involve not just human resources, but also fiscal resources. So I think it's important that we try to keep those things in mind as we move forward in this new normal. Again, I really appreciate the action and the conversation about how is this going to look in 6 months, or how is it going to look in 6 weeks even, and what do we do if there's a second wave? I think that's the type of planning. Yeah, we can't predict what happens with the virus. It is the driving factor over our actions. We almost have to be reactionary. But I think there are some things that we can come up with as a body that are strong recommendations and have some sort of skeleton plan in place. I have a slogan on my front door of my office that says, expect the best, but prepare for the worst. And that's something that I believe we should kind of keep in mind as we go through this new time period. Great meeting, Mr. Chair. This is uncharted ground, and you have done a good job. You're an expert. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. All right, couple of things, and then I'll get to the county attorney and the county administrator. Kudos to just add on Mary Barley. A lot of us all through the COVID-19 have put on the COVID-15, so I know coming out of this we're going to need to figure out how to lean out. I don't know if yoga is in my future, but that may have to happen. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Actually, a couple of us here, administrator, assistant administrator, and I met with the owner of Washington Square a week or so ago, and really in all fairness, Commissioner Proctor, you make some good comments there relative to what might happen, but we just wanted to impress upon him, listen, your success or the success of that project is important to us, and it's important to this community. It's a big deal for us, and, you know, he's struggling, and everybody sees the signs, and I don't wish him any ill will, and I'm hoping he gets to the finish line. But anyway, and then Brack Stadium and FAMU and the Health Department, Claudia, thanks for setting up that. And it sounds like Mary Ann has set the table for us here as far as the challenge of getting tested. And then lastly, I want to try and craft an emotion, but I got to make sure I know how to do this. I'd like on the comp plan meeting that we go ahead with the transmittal. I want to just take you through some history here. I went back, you know, we entered into this development agreement in 1990. We've got 30 years of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And as I look at this from a non-planning standpoint, I mean, you know, we've got schools cooked into this, we've got right-of-way cooked into this, we've got public needs cooked into this. The same family we're dealing with here, frankly, the Miccosukee Greenway is an output of this. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and this is not something, and so for people to say somehow that in the dark of the night, in the last moment, this thing is being pushed over and suddenly handed to everybody, I just don't think is a fair assessment. But I'm not sure from where we are now to the attorney or to the administrator, I can't make a motion, so I'm looking for a way to craft us to get back to putting it back on the table. Can you help me with that?
Motion. But I think what you're looking for is, we've got a previous board direction, which is to not have that comp plan meeting on the large scale amendments until we're in a physical meeting. And so that's the direction we're operating under.
Right. So can I make a motion to put it back on the table as chair?
You can make a motion. You can pass the gavel symbolically if you wish to do that.
All right. So Commissioner Minor, I'm going to let you be chair while I get through this, okay? So I'm going to make a motion that we actually set this up.
You would want to move to reconsider.
To reconsider
action.
The previous action, because we were all on the prevailing side. I think it passed unanimously. And I think one of my concerns here, one of my issues here is the new normal is what we're dealing with right now. And we might be in exactly this same place a year from now. We might be in this place 6 months from now. It's very difficult to figure out. And look at the debate we had earlier on public input. I think we are doing yeoman's work to try and get as much and as many people's opinions as we can. But this just hasn't happened in the last month or two. This has been 30 years as we're working through this. And so I guess I'd like to make a motion to reconsider those two that we basically decided to put off for right now until we can meet. So does that make sense? Yeah. So.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Any discussion? Commissioner Dozier.
I'm not letting it go. I'm sorry, guys. Obviously, I'm going to vote against this. But what you're doing, Mr. Chair, with your motion, the amendment you just requested for May 21st blueprints is an update, a new amendment to that 30-year-old agreement. That meeting happened almost 30 years to the day after the agreement was signed. And I don't understand the rush. Citizens are asking some really good questions about this amendment. I absolutely agree that we don't need to sit on this for 3, 5, 10 years. But to say that we have to pass a comp plan amendment that changes land use for 2,800 acres after one workshop, and in a time when a lot of the people who want to speak on this issue can't come to our meeting, whether we hold it in person or not, because we're not going to have virtual comments. This is a legacy issue, like I said before. We have never been able, all of us, okay, maybe all but 3 or 4 people had questions about this amendment when it was presented in February. We've not seen answers to those questions at all. And then it gets more complicated with the April 8th meeting from the city. I know that the owner's representatives are going around meeting with a lot of people. I had probably a 30-minute meeting with Robert Volpe. I haven't even met with Mr. Hunter or Powell, and I've never heard from them after that first meeting. So you all may be privy to some information from the owner's reps that I don't have. Again, this is why I asked for more information. We are moving the urban service boundary all the way out to Crump Road. I have never said, and I will never say, that the urban service area should not be extended. I assume it will. I always thought it would be. But we are being put in a position where in a virtual meeting or limited public participation, we are asked to make a major land use change without even a second public hearing. We can't even ask for more information to come back. It's going to be an up or down vote. So obviously I can't go with the motion to take up this meeting virtually. But I am really troubled by this precedent we're setting that, I mean, what is the rush? Are we doing this just to benefit the owners and the developers? Why can't we wait 1 year and get this right, or even wait 2 meetings and get this right? Get some more information.
Okay, I can't see the raised hand queue, but I see Commissioner Deloge and then Commissioner Lindley.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, to your point, I would say let's vote it up or down at the meeting, but I don't want to re-debate everything here. We've come 30 years in this process, so it's been in the pipe, it's been in the process. If we've got issues with it, I would argue that we debate it then, because we will, like you said, it will be an up or down vote at the meeting. That would be my contention. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner Lindley.
Well, if I understand it, Commissioner Deloge's motion is just to simply say we don't necessarily have to wait till we have a physical meeting, that we can take it up again at an online meeting.
At the meeting we had. Yeah, at the meeting we had originally scheduled it for. Yeah.
We are going to have to go forward with this kind of unconventional meeting on huge issues, legacy issues, budget issues for the unforeseeable time forward. We don't know. So to me, just taking off this restriction that it has to be discussed at a physical meeting, I'm good with that. I didn't hear anything in his motion saying we want to put it off for 6 months or a year, but I feel like we have to get comfortable with the idea of handling big issues, and we already are. We've done it today. We are going to have to handle important big issues while we're sitting here on a Zoom meeting. So I'm in support just taking up this motion that we have to have it at a physical meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Proctor, and then Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can have a rule that it counts and it excludes all of this and what we've said. And we have a rule right now for which you're trying to make the rule change to it matters or it counts except when it doesn't. And on this one, it doesn't. I think Commissioner Dozier is absolutely right. And just given the area of where this occurs, this is our most vocal area of constituents in Leon County. And if you go back over the last 20 years, or 30 years, go back to 1990, and you will probably find that in this part of the community, in terms of showing up to meetings, vocalizing, writing letters, it is probably a 3, maybe 4 to 1 versus the rest of our district. These folk is vocal. And if they don't get their say, we're going to see them in court. Trust and believe. They will be there, and our counsel will be there in court. We done set up something, a rule that said we're going to wait and keep the big scale stuff off the board. Now, we want to go ahead and we didn't even tweak. And I was against tweaking to allow people who want to talk to us with anonymity. I believe that if we're going to take this big up there in that part of the community, that you have to afford real time, and I would make an exception if we're going to go this way. There's got to be public comment. These people not playing with y'all. I know these people. Trust and believe. I have seen these folks. This one little meeting ain't going to be the end of it. That's just who they are, period. They like ants in your pants and you need to dance. They're coming. So I think that for the good of the order, all things considered, and I recognize the city wants to move the locomotive in that direction, and that's a whole lot more utility meters, and they always get something that we don't get. They get more utility meters, more, that adds to the volume of reserves that they get, which we never get back. So Dozier's right on this right here, Mr. Chairman. I think we should stand down. Chairman should stand down. Honor your policy, honor what we went to time, we wait together, and we cannot advantage and cherry pick who to advantage by sliding some through an exemption or waiving our rule to do this thing. If we're going to be rule correct. Now, if we ain't going to be rule correct, then since we're doing this, why can't we also get an interest in changing one house on 10 acres of land out there? I can't get nobody excited about this suffocating standard. We don't want to deal with that at all. But we can change the rule, change the game plan after we have said it, and I don't think it's fair. And I'm asking us to walk with Commissioner Dozier on this matter. And it's just time also over there to look at one house on 10 acres. That bar is too high. But now we want to go and do something because all the bigs done got together, and the folk who are the bigs are going to, rush through this process, and I don't like it. This is the kind of stuff that leads to FBI reviews when you don't do stuff and it's not tight and right. I don't want nobody to go through the FBI. I don't want to go through the FBI. I mean, if I got to go through the FBI, go through the FBI. But it ain't going to be because of something that I violated a rule and whatnot. I don't know what all is at stake. It's telling us we need to hit the brake, slow it down, do it right, because when you do it right and when it's tight and right, you can withstand the FBI when they knock on our door later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate those comments, Commissioner Proctor. We may not agree on everything, 1 to 10 being an example, but we do agree on this.
1 to 10 is a good standard, Commissioner Dozier. I've been telling you that for years.
If we had a different way to accept public comment during a public hearing on a massive, large-scale comp plan amendment, I could get there with you, Commissioner Lindley. It'd be a struggle for me, but I could get there. But we have severely restricted type of public comment. It is not entered in the public record, and we're going to do this virtually. So that's just the comment about that, the timing of it. We could get there a different way, but we are barreling this through with extraordinarily limited public comment or engagement. Commissioner Deloge, Mr. Chair, the reason why I raised my hand earlier is that I think we need to be clear. This is a 30-year-old agreement that was written the year before the comp plan was brought into focus because we didn't have a comp plan. We should hope that we get better at land use issues over 30 years, and we have. We've gotten so much better. Why would we be bound by that agreement? Now you're going to say it was amended in 06, or 16 and a few weeks ago. Okay, fine. It was amended a few weeks ago. The family was supposed to initiate the comp plan. It changed to the city. Now we're hearing the right-of-way might not be donated if we don't do the comp plan. We cannot rely on this being a 30-year-old agreement and whoops, we just never expanded the USA. Someone made a decision at that time not to expand the USA. this is a profoundly complicated situation. So I just had to say that, and I know it's going on 7, and most everybody wants to go home right now, or we are home, most of us, but y'all want to go home, that's fine. But I'm going to keep focused on this issue because we are pushing something through that at least needs public comment. And this is from someone who will support expanding the USA at some point if we address some of these questions. But as it stands, with a city-created map that we have never been able to get answered from February or hold a public hearing on, I think this is just astonishing that we would push through something like this at this time and without the information that we've got. It just, it's going to be hard enough to manage this conversation with 12 of us in a Zoom on a comp plan. And I am really scared that we're going to approve something that's going to come back and bite all of us later. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion made by Chairman Deloge, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Motion carries. Motion to reconsider carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's it for me. You want me to take the meeting back, or you want to keep running it?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what was the vote on the last motion?
4-3, I think, if I counted right.
4 in favor of the motion, 3 against.
Right, yeah. Okay, thank you. And let me tell you, these are the debates that make this kind of organization, and I appreciate the candor and I appreciate the knowledge base.
Mr. Chairman, point of consideration, commensurate to the scale of what's at stake, Mr. Dozier may have lost the vote, but the substance of her argument is that we have no way to accommodate the scope, the scale, the number of people who have an interest in it. Can we also, and would you receive a motion from me that we would make public comment accessible in real time for this particular matter on this particular night, so that we would have the compatible public input, of which Commissioner Dozier has asked. And I think too, that we're asking ourselves a lot of trouble, lawsuits, if we are not going to give the public comment. I just think that because you have made an exception to this, Brian, you done made an exception, you got your way. Now give the public a way on this particular matter as well. That's what I'm asking.
I will tell you, having chaired this meeting, which runs pretty flawless, even though it's a little clunky, and having chaired the Blueprint meeting, which runs on the city's technology, this looks like MIT rocket science, and the other one looks like paper cups. But I will make sure that we impress upon them, how can we open the pipe to whatever public comment? I don't think that's, but I don't want to re-debate the debate we had earlier about trying to finesse our way into absolutely doing it. I think we're doing as good a job as we can with the situation we've got. So, all right, Mr. Administrator, let's just keep going.
Absolutely. And Mr. Chairman, and not to prolong the last discussion, but I just wanted, for the purpose of clarification, that would mean that the virtual meeting on the comp plan, large-scale amendments, would take place on May 26th as originally scheduled.
Yeah.
Okay. And other than that, I do not have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Madam Attorney.
Happy Mother's Day, belated everybody. Nothing more for the group. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Thank you all. It was a great meeting. 7 o'clock, 4 hours. We stand adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Thank